No. Still red
Was
there.
there any port on the front to plug it into?
No, there isn't. It's just USB-C.
Okay. Fuck you. Add another. Quick outlet timer, please. Right. Fuck it. We're not going to be using your replays and broadcast, so you're losing mic. Sorry, face that.
Cool. That's fine.
Chat, can you hear this? Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Welcome back to the Formula E Accelerate Championship for 2023 here at the London Excel Arena. Of course, following the real-life Formula E action this weekend, we've got 11 of the best esports drivers in the world. They've qualified themselves for this race, and of course, we're about to see what is going to happen. My name is Cameron Roger. I've got Zach Sweeney alongside me, and Zach, it should be a really exciting afternoon of racing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, we're in front of a massive crowd here in London. We've got we're 11 of sim racing's absolute finest. They've fought so incredibly hard to get here, and well, Cam, we've got 2 amazing races in store for us today.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have a charge race, which is a sprint race with a reverse grid from the qualifying that we're about to show you, and then we'll have the full feature length race, a full simulated race around here in London, and there of course there's going to be a little bit longer, maybe a little bit energy management coming into it, time management as well, and that is of course going to be where the driver's going to be earning their money. Let's take you into qualifying actually straight away, because the drivers are already going through. There's been a group qualifying. The top 8 have worked their way through to the bracket system, so there's going to be 4 quarters, then semi and a final in a bracket system. And of course, Zach, that adds a little bit of extra difficulty, because it's not just 1 lap you have to do about 4 laps to get pole position.
Absolutely, it's such a difficult format, and that's why I love Formula E so much, because yes, in Formula 1 you've got Q1, Q2, Q3, so you have got to do more laps, but head to head, that pressure, that one single lap that you've got to beat your rival, it just adds that pressure. It means that you do have to kind of be consistent in qualifying, a sort of thing. You've still got to rise to the occasion on more than one occasion. And a circuit as difficult as the London E-Prix circuit, it's not that easy.
Yeah, and of course with the duels, because you're only fighting against one person, it doesn't matter how fast your lap time is. However, if you do get knocked out, your lap time is then locked in for your grid position. So when we see these duels, of course, you're going to be going as fast as you can. But remember, whoever wins, their lap time, it counts in terms of going through, but it doesn't count in terms of their grid position. So that's what we're looking out for. And your charge race is the top 8 that's going to be reversed as well. So maybe being knocked out in that first quarterfinal might not be a bad thing, Zach.
No, it's not going to be the be-all and end-all. I think you can still definitely do well, but it does put a lot of stress to actually initially get into the duel phase. So over the last couple of minutes, the drivers have done their initial qualifying. Usually it's 2 groups, but it's just the top 8 of one group. So you need to get into that top 8. Yes, there's only 11, but that still means 3 people are going to be missing out. So you have to make sure you are into that bracket system. You have to make sure you are going forward, and you have to make sure that you deliver. But then again, you might still be able to see some glory. However, the charge race is not full points. It's half of what the full length feature is. So it is going to be better to get that pole position.
Yeah, so we're talking the normal FIA format, so 25, 18, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1. But of course, it is then going to be double points for the main race, so I should say basically half points as such for the charge. So let's actually get the drivers on the screen here. This is the London track coming through the first sector. Now, very tight and twisty track, Zach, and it's going to be very easy to make mistakes, especially in these duels.
100%. You've got to be, on it, and you've got to hit every apex. You've got absolutely no wiggle room. I mean, you can see it riding on board with the DS Penske of Isaac Gillison. He is running through, and you can see how difficult the car is to drive.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing at the moment. We do apologise if there's any further tech issues. We are trying to sort out as ever. Through this double hairpin sequence, you see that absolutely slide in the rear end. That's possibly a little bit too much. We're trying to get every last bit of rotation about the car.
100%. I mean, these Formula E cars, they're good. They've got grip. But those double hairpins, they're so tricky, especially that second one, and the rear end rotation. If you try and go through it normally, Cam, chances are you're just going to understeer into the wall. The turn-in circle isn't quite enough, so you've got to kick that rear end out. But there's a limit. As we were talking about in both Berlin and Rome, if you do it too much, those rear tyres are gone.
Yeah, especially over the course of the race distance. In qualifying for one lap, if you can get it perfect, it's going to be good. But here we are inside the London XL, coming into the first couple of corners. Tricky chicane to open the lap there. It's not the easiest part of the track. It's one of the sort of awkward A to B points, just getting you outside. Then we come outside, down the ramp, downhill braking zone into this very tight chicane sequence. Actually, it's not easy at all. Before we come to here, turn 9, the fastest corner on the track, even though it's still quite slow around here onto the back straight.
Yeah, such an important corner as well, because these Gen 3 Formula 3 cars are now capable of speeds in excess of 200 miles an hour. So it's all about putting your foot down, getting the grip. That is not the way to do it.
Yeah, certainly not. It's definitely going to be a bit of a more difficult style of driving in this car. Of course, these new Gen 3 Formula E cars that we got for this year, 2023, they are very fast compared to the Gen 2s we had. They're a few seconds that faster, and they've got way more power. In qualifying now, we've got 350 kilowatts of power, which is somewhere towards 500 horsepower in regular units. So we're pretty fast. We're getting towards GT3 standards, but they don't have the tyre grip or the aero, and especially as we're going much slower, that makes the driving a lot harder. But here, coming through the final couple of corners, this is where you can really lose some time. And then coming across the line, we're going to see who is going to get the fastest lap and who will be working their way through into quarter-final 1. Before we see, of course, Ginnison here come across the line. You see right at the very bottom middle of your screen, the lap time is going to come. We're looking for something towards the 18s to be good. That's a 19.8, so we're not quite sure what the lap time is, but that's certainly just showing you how tricky it is around London.
Yeah, it is. It's so tricky. Again, the drivers have been talking about it. I mean, we've been having conversations with them, and the unanimous statement is absolutely precision, consistency, because you are millimeters from the wall at any given point. And we were saying, sort of, even these Formula E cars, quite skinny, quite narrow, and we were saying, could you go too wide there to the drivers? Single file.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult circuit, this. It is, when we get to the race, the overtaking is going to be a little bit more difficult. It's a very narrow circuit. As you see here, it's around a tight and twisty London XL. For instance, a few weeks ago with Formula E, we're out in Portland, out in the USA. That's a proper IndyCar track. It's a full, GP road course track, whereas here it's tight and twisty. It's going to be very difficult. I think when we get into the race, actually, one thing that we're really going to see is if you make an overtake, you're going to have to be ultra aggressive, taking that risk. But considering there's only 11 drivers on the field, potentially that is the way you're going to have to get to the front, because if you make up a couple of positions, that's going to be a lot of money at the end of the day.
Oh, 100%. I mean, just to sort of touch on money, as we say, we've got about 10,000 in total. That's going to be split between the 10 of the drivers. So one of them is going to have to miss out, unfortunately. But that 10,000 for, we've got 2 of those. So we've got today here in London, we've got then the overall combined of Rome, Berlin, and here today as well. But that 10K, £4,500 for the winner. That is huge. And then when you think 2,000 for second, less than half of what you get for first. You want to win.
Yeah, but one thing that we didn't quite mention is a lot of these drivers here, these are professional drivers. They're affiliated with a proper esports team. They're affiliated with manufacturers in some case as well, and their own esports teams. For instance, actually, this man, Manuel Biancalilla, of course, driving in the Envision car today, but he actually drives for the Aston Martin esports team. So the official Aston Martin F1 team is their esports team. So when you start getting to this level, we get professional drivers. They actually need to earn money, of course, because they're doing this absolutely full time. Of course, got Yanni Simicic here on screen, representing the Jaguar livery. He races for Burst Esport next to you as well. So that is going to be a bit of a tight battle, I think, between these two. These two are certainly some feisty characters out on the track.
100%. I mean, they've both got huge history in sim racing. Yanni Simicic, of course, coming off the back of a couple of really good results in both Rome and Berlin, is tipped to actually be the favourite here today. I mean, off the back of P4 in Berlin, P2 in Rome, and that is a huge statement coming in today, because he is top of the field, one of the favourites to win.
Yeah, it's definitely it's one of those ones for Yeno, where of course in terms of there's 2 championships today. There's a championship for just the 11 drivers, and there's also the championship for the Rome, the Berlin race, and the London points all added together, the 3 of them. So for the likes of Jani Simičić, who did both of the previous races, he's obviously basically leading the championship coming into this because the rivals of Marcel Cincic and Freddie Rasmussen, they are off doing other duties in some racing this weekend. But to the battle on hand that we're seeing, this is the second quarter-final. Coming through the double hairpin sequence, you actually see Simičić isn't actually that far up the road of Biancalilla. Hopefully there's no sort of distractions coming the way for the Italian driver, just rotating the rear nicely there through this double hairpin sequence at 10 and 11 and working the way through the chicane, and that was not the best exit coming through turn 14 now in towards the hairpin.
Absolutely not. Of course, this is going to be one of the action zones when it comes to the races. Attack mode on the outside, drifting the rear end through Manuel Biancalilla. As we've said, that rear end rotation is vital, but it's one thing to do it in quali. You've got to be so careful throughout the race. You rise yourself up over the crest, now back into the stadium, the final chicane, and we'll see what the lap time is.
Yeah, see it coming across the line. We know the likes of Simičić, he can get into the 1 minute 18s, the high 1 minute 18s, but what is it going to be? Cost line of 20.1 there for Biancalilla, and 19.4 for Simičić, so that's still about half a second off his best time, but unfortunately it's going to be Biancalilla there who gets knocked out of that one. So it just shows you how difficult it is to actually do your lap times. When that pressure comes on, we've seen Biancalilla be about a second and a half off the lap times we're expecting.
100%. So coming into the day, they've had their sort of acclimatization, setting up the rigs, seeing how they like it, adjusting the pedals, adjusting the steering wheel. They've had about an hour and a half-ish of out-and-out practice time. And in that time, I mean, it's so different. You go from your home sim doing hundreds of laps, really fine-tuning everything you like. Then you come to here, different rigs, different atmosphere, different country for some, and you've just got to be on the pace, immediately on the pace. And then to do it in practice is one thing. To then straight away in the duels, that high-pressure situation, it's the pressure. And you have to remember, these guys are still, as good as they are only human.
Absolutely. So you have to also remember the way that this works is quarter, semi and final. So for instance, Simičić going through there, so he will now go into the semi-finals and he's going to have to do it all over again to try and get into the final. And remember, pole position gets a 6-point bonus, which is massive. When we're talking about the race win in the charge race being 25 points and the race win in the feature race being 50 points, an extra 6 points is almost 10% extra. Plus there's going to be fastest laps in the race as well. These extra little points you can get, not just from the racing, I think is going to be important.
100%. I mean, people underestimate fastest lap points. They think, that's only an extra lap, why would you really want it? But at this level, I mean, just looking at it in the overalls, I mean, Per Berlak, Lucas Müller, Risto Capit, Manuel Biancalilla, they are all points. 1 point, 2 point, 3 points apart. That's the fastest lap. That's setting a good time. That's pole position. Those are the margins that we are talking about. Those are the things that we matter. Now into the next duel, Risto Capit for Neo, and well, let's see if he can get himself into the semis.
Yeah, Risto, of course, driving for RHG Esports today, representing the Neo 333 Formula E team, coming out through this first sector. This is, I would say, the tight and twisty part of the lap. That first bit inside the arena, coming out now, then this way can start to open up, and this exit's so difficult. You can see there, though, sliding the rear end there and not having the best time of it. And then coming into the hairpin, of course, what you might notice, oh, that's way too much. He's lost the front wing as well. This is not the way that Risto would have wanted. You see that he tried to get the slide coming into the hairpin, just overdid it, and he's going to be really struggling now coming to the end of this lap.
Absolutely. Of course, he's going to be hoping that his rival is slightly off the pace, because again, it only matters if you beat your rival. You could be doing a 2 minute 30 lap time. As long as it's quicker, that's wide as well into the hairpin at the back end of the circuit, turn 16. Not a great lap for Risto Capit. He's been one of the most efficient drivers in practice, sprinting from the canteen back from lunch to get back to the rig. Dabin Rojek across the line, a 19.8. It's not the quickest, but I'm sure it's going to be quicker than this.
Yeah, let's see. Risto Capit, of course, with losing that front wing, he's going to have no front downforce coming to the end of the line, and this is going to be an important one. It's going to be 21.3, and unfortunately, Risto Capit is going to be knocked out. So that is not ideal for him. So he's going to have to Capit, actually, with a slow lap time, he might end up with that 8th place position, being the slowest of the drivers to be knocked. So everyone who gets knocked out in the quarterfinals, these will get the grid for 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th place. And of course he goes in lap time. So maybe with Capit having a slow time there, that might give him pole for the charge race, and that might actually benefit him sort of later on today.
Yeah, of course. I mean, qualifying is very, very important around a circuit like London. don't really have many places to get an overtake done. It is going to be all about consistency, keeping yourself out of trouble and nailing a qualifying lap. But I suppose if you're not going to be first for the main race, you might as well be first for the charge race to get that extra point. And then I suppose for Risto, if he wants any chance, it's going to be win this race with the fastest lap and then work his way forward throughout the main race. I suppose that's his only chance, but we'll wait and see. He's a driver, he's stone cold, no emotion, and I'm sure he's going to keep himself composed going forward.
As here is Brendan Lee for RAG Esports, of course representing the Avalanche Andretti team, coming in towards the hairpin. He's on his outlap as it stands, obviously slowing down there, trying to get some heat in the brakes, get some tyre warming into that as well. We've got Petter Burlak in behind him, who will be actually I think he's going to be a pretty fast driver today. Obviously representing Nissan, he actually drives for Alpine Esports as well, so definitely lots of representation here. Coming into the final couple of corners, working their way through to start the lap. You're going to see a very wide line to try and get the straightest possible exit out down this front straightaway, which is very short actually around here. It's not the highest top speed circuit. Coming in towards this first chicane, missing the first apex just a little bit. That tightens up turn 2, now in towards turn 3. Also just not quite getting the apex, not getting the last couple of thousands here so far.
Yeah, unfortunately for Brendan Lee, he's had a bit of a slow morning. He's not quite been able to put as extensive as amount of practice. He's been under a lot of stress coming in today. A couple of technical difficulties with his equipment has put him back ever so slightly. But in that practice session we saw he was only a couple of attempts off the pace. I think P2 in the overall standings. Now he's just got to deliver. A bit of a twitch going into the hairpin, not quite got the rotation, nearly snagging that rear right on the first bit, not drifting it at all through the second part. That's going to cost him.
Yeah, the drifting and sliding is always a way of getting a bit more time. Brendan, of course, two-time F1 Esports champion. He knows what he's doing, but unfortunately, a couple of technical issues. Into the wall! Sliding his way through the hairpin. That's going to be some time lost, not only on the entry, but also the exit. Might have some damage actually coming through this final chicane sort of sequence of bends. Trying to get the rotation through. He's not had the best morning. A couple of technical issues on his rig, but he's now up and to the pace. Coming through this final couple of corners. I don't think this is going to be time that he wanted. It's a 99 though for Burlak, not the fastest time. Can Lee do anything? Oh, it's a 99 as well. I didn't remember the thousandth of a second, but they had almost identical times there at the end. So that was amazing to see just how close it can be. So Petter must have had a pretty mediocre lap as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that if you're both at a mediocre level, you've just got to be a little bit less mediocre than the person you're fighting and you can make a way through. We'll obviously confirm who's managed to find their way through when we can, but that's the closest you'll get, and that's what they're about, is getting that little extra margin you can of your rival.
And that's just like with Brendan Lee there, making that mistake. I think actually he might have just got that from memory, but making that mistake just shows you how easy it is to lose out from that. And of course, with that extra 6 points that we're talking about for pole position, you really want to be trying to get to that final. It's going to be all important to do so. Also in general, overtaking is not going to be easiest, so starting, all these drivers have said getting knocked out, they'll be 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. They are basically going to be locked in from that. It's not going to be too bad, but here's actually confirmation on screen. So it's Lucas Müller leading the way from Isaac Gillison there in that first quarterfinal. Then we come into the second one, which Jani Simicic got on top of Manuel Biancalilla. And then in the third one, it was David Mocek beating Risto Kapit. And then at the end there, we saw Brendan Lee just by a couple of hundredths of a second getting Petter Burlak. So there's the two semi-finals. Zach, what are your predictions between Müller and Simicic first up?
I mean, they're two of the favourites coming into today. So it's, again, another thing about the duels is that you never know who you're paired with. You could have the fastest driver paired with the slowest. You could have the two middle drivers. You could have, like we have here, two of the fastest drivers put together. Müller, we've been speaking to him, very, very confident in his pace. Simicic, one of the favourites, also very good at LAN. Took part in the Monaco LAN event, was it last year that he did? Managed to win that. He's clearly very at home when it comes to on-site events. I think we're in for a very explosive duel.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, but Jone was letting us know yesterday it was actually his first flight ever coming here to London, because all the other ones, obviously being on the European continent, he comes from Slovenia, he's just driven to the other events, which is pretty crazy getting a flight here over to London. But here is Jone Simicic on his outlap, working his way up to speed. Yeah, Lucas Müller as well, massively fast talent. to be honest. He's actually one of probably the more all-round drivers here. A lot of the drivers here will be rFactor 2 specialists, so that's a simulation that we use as rFactor 2. There are other ones obviously available, and lots of the drivers do go in between, but I would say out of everyone, Lucas Müller is one who's basically competed on every single platform.
100%. I mean, I spoke to him last week. I was just like, can you sort of summarize your sim racing career for me? Expecting a summary. No, he gave me rFactor 2, Formula 1, ACC, Race Room, iRacing, Range Sport, the real world as well. Seven different ways to race, and he has succeeded in all of them. I mean, second in the Formula E race at home over the course of 2020, P2 in the AOR Tier 1 Season 16 for those who are more well-versed in the F1 League racing scene, and actually qualified for F1 Esports. I mean, we've got Brendan Lee, two-time F1 Esports World Champion, Race Room he's won, ACC he's won, and not only on different sims cam, but different disciplines of racing. Müller is so versatile. But Simičić is the rFactor 2 master.
Yeah, he certainly is, but when it comes to race today, who is going to come out on top? That was a very awesome first sector by Lucas Müller, sliding it through the second hairpin there at turn 11 for Jurnej Simičić through that very fast, tight chicane and working him out through the kinks of 14 and 15. This is really the tighter part of the track, over the bumps, in towards the braking zone. As you see, they're not really getting anywhere near 100% braking, just not able to have the grip there to do that, but now into the final sector.
Yeah, and this is where it all matters. If you know you're on a good lap, this is where the adrenaline starts to rise. This is where it's do or die time, and Simičić so precise in his movements. It's always one clear movement. Now through the penultimate corner into the final one, it's always about getting that late apex, putting your foot down, now across the line. 19.4 in the quarters. What can he do in the semis?
And across the line, I don't know if it's going to update. That might mean it's a little bit slower, so I have to try and find out. Lucas Müller now across the line. It was looking very clean, and that's a 19.3, so I'm pretty sure that Lucas has won that because Jurnej's time didn't update, so I think he went slower than his 0.4, and therefore I think Müller managed to get that one. That was an awesome drive, actually, from Lucas, especially in that first couple of sectors that we saw. That was really clean.
It was, and again, London, precision, consistency, being this far away from the wall is how to drive quickly. But also with that, they're driving on the edge. They're not comfortable in how they're driving. They're not, let's brake in a straight line and bring it to the apex nicely. It's slam on the brakes, get the rear end stepped out, drift it through, hit an apex, put the foot down. It's so straight away, boom, boom, boom. And that's how you have to drive the car. You have to be this close to the limit, trying not to step over the mark.
Yeah, it seems to be very on the limit. And of course, when you get into that situation, the drivers really have to have the feel of it. And they've only really had maybe an hour, 2 hours getting used to these rigs, and not everyone will have the same equipment as this at home. So it's certainly a difficult one to do so. But I'm really impressed with Müller there. We're talking about Simičić leading the championship out of the drivers who have attended today and getting knocked out already in the semi-final. So the best he's going to start is P3.
Yeah, well, again, not too bad at all. Davin Mrocek now through the second hairpin. Hopefully that's his outlap and not his flying lap, because again, that's not the way that you want to drive this car. You have to be sideways through that second one because of how tight it is initially. You can't hit an apex if you're essentially driving it like a race car.
Yes, certainly a tricky car, tricky circuit, and that's why we're seeing the steering wheel move all over the place for these drivers. You see Mrocek there just getting some extra steering lock to try and hit up those front tyres. No tyre warmers in this discipline, so it's definitely a difficult one for the drivers. Outlaps, but here he is to start his next lap.
Yeah, well, here he goes. This is it. Put your foot down. Brendan Lee doing the same as well. He's coming through into the final corner. You can see how they set it up. They don't take the race in mind. They go nice and wide, straighten up the car, put their foot down. Again, it's a short burst to turn one, but it's a very important one at that. Onto the brakes, trail braking it in, hit the first apex, mind the curb on the inside, mind the wall through turn 2, then swing it back to the right-hand side, flick it through turn 3 into 4. Now outside for Davin Mrocek. That is an important corner. Alright.
Yeah, that was actually not too bad, of course. He didn't slide the rear load, so maybe that wasn't necessarily the fastest, but it was clean at least. Coming into the hairpin, just slightly missing the apex actually. That opens up the second one, but always missed the apex though quite a lot in that second one. Didn't get the rear slide, just struggling a little bit through that one. And as you see, just look at the throttle trace up the front, at the top there. It takes so long to get to full throttle in these cars. They're really overpowered for the amount of grip that they've got. Coming towards the braking zone again, nowhere near that 100% brakes. Can't use the full amount of brakes. Just slide in the rear through the fast left-handed corner at turn 17 and into the final couple of corners. It's certainly looking pretty decent actually from Mojek, but can he improve from that 19.8?
Yeah, 19.8. Respectable time, bit of a mistake going into penultimate corner, doesn't set him up too great for the final one, but now you can just see how, oh, that's a huge mistake, and that is going to cost him a massively lifting across the line. I don't see him going through.
Let's see what Brendan Lee does coming towards the line. Can he improve on his 19.9? Of course, Mojek with that contact out of the final corner. He also, interesting, they both lifted off, coming towards the line. I wonder if that's a little bit of tactical games, trying to be, actually, they realise if they're going to lose it, then maybe that is not the best grid position. But Darren Mojek, we've been told, did win that. So even with the bang on the wall, Brendan Lee, losing hell on that one.
Yeah, I mean, track position is very important, and we said to some of the drivers that if you're not first, you're better off to be, sort of fifth, sixth, that sort of region. So maybe a little bit of that. You'd rather, if you're going to be on the same row, you might as well be in the better position of the row. But good job for David to move his way forward, even with that slight mistake. And it does mean you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be better.
Yeah, and that's probably the best way of putting it. I guess it's also some games of they're thinking, if I lost out, then I want to be slower and actually start lower down, because then that's higher up in the reverse, if that makes sense. Because it's top 8 reverse, so these guys are fighting for third and fourth place effectively there, so that's going to turn into sixth place-ish for the reverse grid. So of course, when there's points for a reverse grid, sometimes there's some sportsmanship, some gamesmanship that you can do. But we'll come to the final, of course. Lucas Müller and Darren Mojek will be coming out onto the track for the final time for these duels. This is for the pole position and 6 points that come with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same road, but second place, again, obviously starts behind, but also gets 6 points less. And for Lucas Müller, he is coming into this. He wants to win. He wants to add the Accelerate Championship to his list of accolades. And, well, he is gearing up in order to do so all weekend. I mean, we saw him yesterday on Friday. From the start, he is confident. I suppose it's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, but he treads it very finely, and he knows how good he is. And that's such a good mindset to be in, because you tell yourself you're going to win, you're probably going to win.
Yeah, it gives you that extra couple of tenths, because you have that confidence coming into it. You have the ability to move the car around rather than the car dictate your pace, and it's looking pretty nice from Müller, but actually I think that was his out lap. Yeah, a bit of a wide entry to the final corner. So this is now coming onto his hot lap. So he's actually doing a pretty hard out lap. So we saw Colin going slowly, but he's actually trying to get the heat into the tyres to try and get them warmed up. Here's Mojek, also wide line to come and start his lap.
Yeah, David Mojek, of course. I mean, it's back to back. The duels are one after the other. So Mojek, I mean, he's got to not let that mistake affect him. This is probably the most heated qualifying session that he has had through the entirety of the Formula E Accelerate Championship up until this point. I mean, he's done well, but he's not quite been in that fight for pole position. P15, P11, this is unfamiliar territory for Darren Mojek. As good as he is in this format, in this championship with these drivers, this is unknown grounds to him.
Yeah, he struggled a bit in the Berlin Major back in April. He sort of messed up qualifying, got stuck in the pack a little bit, and then of course with Rome a similar situation. But he's qualified a lot better today, of course, getting into this pole position, coming in towards the hairpin now. That was very nicely on the brakes for Lucas Müller. Slide in the rear, maybe a little bit too much. Now in towards this fast left-hander. Can this be enough? It's looking pretty actually tidy so far, hitting all his apexes as he comes back up the hill.
Yep. Final couple of corners for Lucas Müller. Is it going to be second? Is it going to be first? Plus 6 points on to his tally. Representing Neon McLaren, of course, through the final corner, nice and tidy, building up the throttle up to 100% and lifting off across the line, braking across the line as well.
Interesting, maybe not what's that pole position. Here comes David Mojek pushing through the final corner. Remember, pole position, 6 extra points. This could be crucial in finding out your championship today. And Mojek as well, he does. Was that a 0.4 actually? So Mojek, I think, has taken the victory in that one with how much Müller slowed down. We'll just get that confirmation to you. But certainly, there was David Mojek as we first saw. So Mojek gets pole position, gets to 6 points, but with the reverse grid, will start in 8th place for the charge race.
Yeah, I mean, the point of the charge race, essentially, I mean, obviously it's got the play on the words with charging batteries and things, but the name of the game, charge your way through the field, pick up those places, get those points, because, again, only the top 5 get points in the charge race. You've got to get that 5th place in order to score anything from these 10 laps.
Yeah, no, I think that pole position is going to be very crucial today because, first of all, you get their 6 points, so that puts him in pole position for the main race. Overtaking is going to be difficult, so surely, unless there's any sort of major incidents, he's guaranteed a good result in the main race. But first, we'll come to the charge race, and that's where he's going to have to work his way back through the field, along with the likes of Lucas Müller, along with Simoncic and Brendan Lee as well, who of course will be in that 3rd and 4th place on the grid. So I think it's going to be a very tricky one to see how those drivers come back through in the reverse grid.
100%. I think the name of the game is consistency, keeping your nose out of trouble. I mean, the last thing you want is to bin it on the first lap. That is, that is a worst case scenario. Keep it clean. Chances are you'll probably pick up 1 or 2 places on the first lap alone.
Yeah, let's actually get an interview with your pole position man, Scott, is with David Mocek.
David, that was an absolutely fantastic lap. The precision, the car control. How did it feel for you?
It felt alright. It was not the best lap I've done on this track. It's actually quite a bit of a surprise for me, this result. Because today I'm forced to drive in a bit of unnatural position for me. At home it's completely different. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that, I guess. Yeah, just a big surprise.
Brilliant. Well, you've adapted to the car and the rig extremely well today. What is the best part of the London circuit here?
What part? I would say probably I like the quick chicane in the sector 3. It really requires a lot of precision. It's kind of that type of a corner that requires just maybe sometimes to close your eyes and just commit to it. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Brilliant. So you've got the extra 6 points now heading into the races. How do you think you're going to get on in the first charge race?
Well, the first race is only going to be about survival because I think especially the hairpins in sector 2, it's really difficult on lap 1. So I just hope to survive that, and I think if I manage that, it should be all right.
Fantastic, David. Well, an excellent lap. Congratulations on pole position. Cassers, what do you think of that result?
I think that was actually, just as Mocek said, he was not to put him down, but he's not necessarily the one that we thought was going to be getting that pole position. So I think that's a great result for him. And of course, he'll be very happy, and his team, Burst Esports next year as well. They'll be absolutely loving that one with Simoncic up there. So I think they're looking pretty good from that point of view. And I think another surprise necessarily was some of the likes that we saw getting knocked out a little bit earlier, like Risto Capit as well. I thought he was going to be a little bit faster than that. But while the drivers just get set up for the charge race, we will go to a quick break where the drivers just can have a little bit of rest after qualifying, and then we'll be back for the reverse grid charge race.
Welcome back to the Formula E Accelerate Championship Season 9 live here in London. We've just taken a break from an epic qualifying with David Mocek on pole, and now we're all set for some fantastic racing. We have two races this afternoon. First up, the charge race coming up, and then the main race. So let's head over to Cameron and Zach to explain the format.
There's certainly a very interesting format around here for the Rome and the Berlin majors. Previous to this, we only had the main race, but now, Zach, we also have the charge race. This is a sprint race with a reverse grid, slightly different.
100%. So we've just been through qualifying. Of course, they've done their initial stage, then the duels, but now we've flipped that on its head. Those that made it through to the quarterfinals, 8th starts first, 7th second, etc., etc., etc. 10 laps of racing action, and now the top 5 get points as well. So it's 25, 18, 15, 12, 10, and that's it.
Yeah, so the top 5 only getting points is an interesting one. There's 11 drivers on the grid, which means 6 are going to miss out. And to be honest, I think that's going to be quite a big factor. But of course, what track are they racing on? We've seen the qualifying happen, and it's a very tie and twisty nature of the track. It's not necessarily a street track, it's more of an arena sort of fictional track as well. So let's just go through. So this is basically it's a clockwise track starting in the bottom left hand corner. You're going to see this sector 1 is the tight and twisty part. We open up in the arena section before going through turn 1, 2, 3 and then out down the ramp, and here's sector 2.
And now obviously you come out of turn 9, the longest straight on the track, into the most technical bit, turns 10 and 11, the double hairpin. Of course, back in 2021, this is what we were running in the real life Formula E. Really key to get that rear end out, especially for that second hairpin, through into 12 and 13. Then it's about exit all the way down to attack mode.
Yeah, you come through the Kings to turn 14, 15, into that hairpin at turn 16 before working your way through actually quite an interesting corner for the track, a long left-hander in towards sort of triple chicane sequence, and then up the ramp again in towards the final 2 corners. It's definitely a more tricky track around here. We're going to see overtaking being a little bit more difficult, but for this charge race, Zach, we've seen the top 8 being reversed, so the faster drivers are in the middle of the pack, and they need to get back into the top 5 to score points.
Yeah, so again, before the break we were talking about how you've got to charge your way forward, make up places. This is what it's designed for. This is the theory behind it, is that it's so easy to get pole, run away, win, like we saw with Chinchik over the course of the 2 majors, qualified well, ran well in the initial stages and wasn't touched. Now, if you get pole, fantastic, you get 6 points, you get pole for the main race. But now if you really want to seal the deal, you've got to overtake, you've got to charge your way forward.
Yeah, and I think that's why we saw a couple of the drivers slowing down in the top of the qualifying, because they thought, oh, if I'm not going to get pole, I want to then be as close to that top 5 as possible. coming in towards this race. So let's go to the starting grid and show you, because of course we weren't 100% sure of all of the lap times, but here it is for the 11 drivers for this charge race. Risto Capit is going to be on pole position, followed by Manuel Biancalilla for firstly Risto for Neo, and then for Envision for Biancalilla. David Moche is going to be third there for Takao Porsche, and Lucas Muller in fourth place for Neo McLaren. On the third grid of the day, we're going to see Yanis Simicic and Jaguars, Andretti's Brendan Lee in sixth place. On the fourth row of the grid, we're going to see Isaac Gillison for DS Penske and Peter Berlak for Nissan. Then coming towards the back end of the grid is Jacob Reed in 9th place, and 10th place you've got Abs Krupa, Leo Krippner, and then the last driver on the field is going to be Martin Baguli for Maserati MSG. So of course those last couple of drivers there we did actually see getting through in towards the duels, because before the duels there was actually a qualifying, and we basically lost 3 of the drivers.
Yeah, of course, there has to be 3. You know, only 8 of them can find a way through, and well, you might be saying, well, you know, that's 8 out of 11 of the drivers, that's a good chunk, you've got a good chance of finding your way through, but someone has to miss out, and unfortunately it was those bottom 3, so now they've got a really, really tough job at hand.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, difficult for them actually to come back through the field and get into those points, especially in this first race. Of course, points go down to 10th in the main race, but because it's only to 5th, they're really going to struggle. But again, that means they've just got to take every chance they can get, take some risks, because at the end of the day, you're either going to be last or you're going to be last trying.
Exactly. You know, if you don't try, you're last. If you do try, you might be last, but you might be P5. So it's better to go for it rather than looking back in hindsight and regretting what you did. I mean, for some of these drivers, a LAN event is a really big thing. They really want to enjoy the atmosphere, so why not make the most of this opportunity? Just send it. I think that's the point of the sprint race. Yes, overtaking is difficult, but you know, the best drivers are going to make do with what they got, and also it's motor racing, and we know what motor racing's like. There's always a curveball to be thrown.
And also this is a 10-lap sprint race as well, and one thing that actually we haven't mentioned yet is there's attack mode. So attack mode is basically on the outside of that hairpin at turn 16, you see the drivers go through these white lines. When they do that and they activate attack mode, they get a bit more power. So the idea is you go off the racing line, you lose a position or two, and then you have the extra power to come back. Everyone has to use it twice, even in a 10-lap race. That's going to be very interesting, because of course that's 20% of the race that you're going to be using attack mode.
100%. So you do it, of course, in 2-minute bursts. So they'll do it once, they'll have 2 minutes of 350 kilowatts of power, the same that they were running in qualifying compared to the usual 300. So a big boost, it must be said. But with a circuit so difficult at overtaking, going offline, particularly through a hairpin, that long way round, you're probably going to lose a second and a half a lap time. You then need to make sure that you gain it back. And while yes, it's only a 10-lap race, still a little bit of strategy involved.
And it's one of those things where you've kind of got to look for a gap behind you to fill into. So we'll actually end up talking about an undercut or an overcut, because if a car behind you goes into attack mode, then there's a gap behind you to then do it on the next lap. But then it's the difference of those laps is they're one extra lap with attack mode. Is that going to be fast enough for them to overtake you? So there's definitely going to be a bit of strategy coming into that. I think when we of course get to the grid as well, there's not going to be any formation laps or anything like that. It's going to be straight into it. It's going to be basically drivers going hot straight away and just having to get that adrenaline rushing.
100%, and again, it's why these drivers are so good, because going in from qualifying, whatever your result was, you've got to reset mentally, essentially, going into the race. You've got to be in a frame of mind. Doesn't matter what qualifying was like, this is the race, 10 laps, and we'll find out who is going to take the charge victory.
So here's your 10-lap charge race here for Formula E Accelerate 2023. We've got 10 grand on the line. Let's see what happens. Capit away from pole position. He gets an awesome launch. Biancalilla from second place is going to have to try and cover off. Peter Berlak trying to cover all the way around the outside. Bit of contact between the two. Coming through that first chicane in towards turn 3 now. Biancalilla's held on.
He has a fantastic start from Risto Capit, though a very poor qualifying, but he's making the most of the initial moments here in the start of the charge race. Bit of contact in the background. That might be between Gillison and Simicic potentially. But Biancalilla settling well, keeping position and keeping Berlak at bay.
Yeah, it seems like top 2 of top 3, I should say, starting to get a little bit of a gap. This is good for them. Remember, this is a 10-lap sprint race, no saving in terms of the energy. It's just full push in that 5th place there. You're going to see sliding in, I think that's Lucas Muller. There's contact in the background there, heard, so we've got to look out for these drivers. Remember, trying to work their way up into the top 5 today to get points.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's overtake, push, flat out. Brendan Lee and Lucas Muller up places in the initial moment. Same 2 especially with Jacob Reed up there into the top 8. It's great gaining a place, but you've got to keep going. You cannot stop there. You cannot let your progress halt.
And there's attack mode on the left. A bit of contact coming in towards the hairpin. Now's the Jaguar. I would think of Yannis Simincic hitting the back of Gillison. Of course, different braking strategies. That's what they've got to learn. All the driving they've done today has been on their own, basically doing qualifying practice. But now we've got other cars on the track, and then coming up the ramp once again through Sector 3 and into this amazing London XL Arena and onto the start finish straight. There is Jacob Reed there. For the Mahindra Racing, getting on the back of Simincic.
Yeah, he is. Is he going to be able to make a move? It's a relatively short pitch straight here at the XL. You've not got a lot of time spent flat out, so you've got to make the most of what you've got. Simincic, of course, in the Jaguar TCS livery, he's working his way through Sector 1, and it's just single file. And for Simincic, being the favourite coming into today, to not score points in the charge race, I think could be quite costly.
Yeah, he's looking good at the overall standings if we include the Berlin and Rome race, but for the 10 grand that's been fought for today, 4.5 grand for the winner, just for the London, the 11 drivers here, he's going to be struggling. Coming towards the hairpin, it looks like Biancalille's not letting Capit get away, actually. As a little bit further back there was definitely a massive slide from, I think that was Lucas Müller in 5th place. Definitely really trying to find some time. As we're seeing on the screen there is Biancalille, the Italian driver, coming down in towards the hairpin to try and chase down that race lead.
He is, and he's going to be pushing. And he's such a good driver at staying composed. Very experienced, of course, when it comes to sim racing, as all of them are, so he knows how to deal with this pressure. David Brocek, of course, our pole sitter, going in to the main race in just a few moments' time, 28 laps in length, but to be P9, I mean, going backwards in this charge race isn't going to install him with a lot of confidence.
Now, he's definitely looking good in terms of the points, though, assuming he can keep the victory going in that main race. So this is not ideal for him. Of course, also because it's only the top 5 that gets points, 5th place gets 10, everyone below gets nothing. So it's quite a big jump as well for how that point structure is going to work a little bit later on. As come back up to the front, this is the lead of the race. Risto Capit going through this very tricky chicane down to the end of Sector 1, and Biancalille is not letting him get away. And look at those fastest lap times in the tower as well, just 1/10 of a second between them.
Yeah, Brendan Lee, of course, despite his difficulties getting set up, he's setting the pace and he is pushing. 2-time Formula 1 Esports World Champion, the first ever Formula 1 Esports World Champion. Bit of contact, that was Lucas Müller into the back of Brendan Lee there, and now look at the sheer concentration of Brendan Lee. He might not literally be in attack mode, but he is in attack mode.
And that's a good point. Attack mode. They have to use it twice in the race, and the later you go, of course, you basically don't have a strategy. There he goes, second place. Biancalille goes into that attack mode and comes away nicely, actually, because he keeps his track position.
Yeah, he does. That was so important. Going back on what you said just before we got into this race, settling in to a nice gap behind, feeding your way in, because the last thing you want with attack mode is to lose track position. Now he's got that extra 50 kilowatts of power. Now he can use it to drive onto the back of Capit, and this is what we're talking about. He's going for effectively the undercut.
And you have slightly more power as well, so be able to gain an extra couple of tenths. He's already pulling away from the red and white Nissan of Burlak just in behind. So it's not crazy amount because there isn't a lot of flat out sections here to use the extra power, but it will be just that extra little bit. But as you see on that track map as well, everyone's staying so close together, apart from unfortunately we've lost Mergli and Kripner off the back of this front pack.
Yeah, unfortunately not quite been able to settle into this race, of course. Qualified a little bit far down. They were the ones at P10 and P11, which unfortunately is where they are now. Their fastest lap, not incredibly off the pace. I mean, matching the likes of Jacob Reed and Simincic in front, but again, consistency, precision is the be-all and end-all, I think, of a race like this. Biancalille, though, in attack mode, of course, more power. Yes, it's great, but through those hairpins, slightly less traction. We talk about the grip comparative to the power levels, and Biancalille, he's going to struggle to put his foot down.
Let's see what the drivers do behind. Anyone going to be taking attack mode? Oh, yes, it is. There's Peter Burlak from third place. He's going to be losing that to Brendan Lee, who takes that position. But Burlak, of course, will have to now try and overtake with the extra power. Brendan Lee still needs to owe us that attack mode as well, so he'll be dropping in behind. So it's definitely the strategy. It's almost like a Joker lap we see in sort of rallycross style racing for this attack mode.
Yeah, indeed so. And Brendan Lee, again, still pushing. His pace is not going to be thwarted. He knows what it's like to win. He knows knows what it's like to compete at the top level, and he knows the job that needs to be done. Make the most of this bit of racing at the moment. This is Isaac Gillison, the Dutchman, under a bit of pressure from the Slovenian of Jane Simičić, and Simičić really needs to get past because track position is key, and he wants to make the most of anything in front of him because Gillison, if Muller or Berlak spins, he's into the points. Simičić wants to be the one to benefit.
Yeah, Simičić ended up in that awkward position actually in terms of the point structure because he's not high enough up in this reverse race to get into the points straight away. Then when we get to the grid later, he's also not going to be directly at the front, being in that sort of third, fourth, fifth area. As you see them come into the hairpin once again. You see Brendan Lee leading this train. He's got Peter Berlak in behind. Here is Lucas Muller for the Neil McLaren livery. Coming through that very awkward chicane, and as you see through this part of the track, it is harder to get side by side. Once again, coming in towards the attack mode zone. I wonder if we see some other drivers starting to take it again.
Yeah, maybe so. Going wide there, just ahead of Muller is Peter Berlak. He settles in behind the German, who moves his way forward up into fourth place. So now with a little bit of extra power does the Nissan livery machine. Peter Berlak, of course, representing Alpine Esports. He's here today, and now he's got an extra 50 kilowatts of power. But again, probably not necessarily the worst case scenario, but not a great one, because now he's not able to make the most of that attack mode being stuck behind the McLaren.
Yeah, as Capit is getting away 3 seconds at the front of the field while these guys squabble behind and sort out their attack modes. Not quite sure if Capit's actually used one of his yet, such as the gap that he's got, but it's certainly looking good, and look how close all these fastest lap times are.
Yeah, absolutely insane, but Capit is the one setting the pace, but Simičić, the only driver actually into the 1 minute 19s, and 19.9 in race trim, that's really quick. However, those rear tyres, you've got to be so careful not to burn them out.
Yeah, hopefully in 10 minute race, 10 lap race, they should actually be kind of okay, but you're right, it's also the risk that you take, because if you get those slides wrong, you could very easily crash into the back of someone or just over-rotate like we've seen a few times already. As we're now halfway into this race, onto the 6th lap, we're seeing Manuel Biancalilla coming towards the attack mode, and he's going to go for it as well as Risto Capit in behind. Brendan Lee is also going to do it as well, so the top three taking their attack modes at the same time.
Yeah, which I guess is kind of good for them. No change between the top three, but they're not necessarily losing anything, so I suppose if you're not going to gain anything, it's better to just have it stay at the same, keep it where it is. Brendan Lee, though, up into third place. Must be said, despite his issues, he's really been able to keep a nice, composed mindset and just push forward, forget about everything that happened this morning, just do what he does best.
Yeah, we've actually seen this over his career. We sort of first learned about him about 2017, so already 6 years ago now,
100%.
That he's been at this top level, so he's definitely got that mindset, that experience that is very crucial as we see Capit back towards front. He's just loving it. Qualified 8th place. Maybe that's actually been the saviour for his day.
Maybe so. Again, we were talking to Jürgen Van Bergen, of course. He's been saying that he doesn't really think that the win of the charge race it is going to put you in a great stead to win overall. But Risto Capit, again, that mistake in qualifying through the hairpin, sure, it cost him. But again, just look at his concentration. He is not letting anything get to him whatsoever. He just feels right at home out in front.
He's definitely a very cool, calm and collected character as well. So he's definitely one of those drivers who will be able to basically just get in a rhythm and hold on to the situation and really have full control of it. No one using attack mode just yet. Actually, yeah, that's Peter Berlak just in behind. Can he make it out in front? Going to be very close there with Gillison.
Yeah, it was good. He just about managed to have the inside. That's the good thing about 16's attack mode, is that straight away into the long left-hander of 17, you have still got the inside, and it's so difficult to overtake full stop here at the London E-Prix circuit, but also to go the long way around over a very, very long corner. So as long as you're side by side, you should win that battle.
And if we look on the track map, look at the bottom right there, David Mojek in that 9th place. Look how far behind he is to the first place. Incredible the track distribution that we're seeing so far. On to lap 8, so we have got this and 2 more. Capit leading very comfortably out the front, and it seems like in behind they've all started to spread out just a bit, but of course the main race is going to come later, which is double points from what we're seeing now. So this is just a bit of a warm-up and drivers getting themselves prepared.
Yeah, this is the first taste of racing that these drivers have got at this circuit, because as Cam said in qualifying, Simičić right on the limit of grip, and the Penske car of Gillison just in front, also very close to spinning spinning the rear end of the car around. But yeah, the racing and hot lapping around a circuit are two very different things, and you've got to be good at both in order to succeed. And I suppose the charge, as you say, bit of a warm-up, acclimatise yourself with what racing is going to be like, as taking his attack mode there was Lucas Müller.
Oh, and in behind there, the Mahindra of Jacob Reed goes for a spin at the hairpin. He's going to lose a couple of seconds from that, and yeah, Müller actually managed to take his attack mode without losing that place to Burlak, so he actually managed to do a bit of an overcut there as such, but Gillison unfortunately losing that place to Simičić.
Yeah, not great, but Simičić is going to be loving it, pushing forward still. Yes, he's in 6th place. Yes, he's got the fastest lap. That, of course, is good. You're going to get a point for that, which is 1 point more than he would get for 6th. He's got to push. He's got to hope that Petter Burlak makes a mistake or something like that. But Simičić and Gillison giving each other some really good races here, right on the limit, the pair of them, and really pushing to be the one in front.
Absolutely, and it looks like it's basically it's yeah, it's quite difficult for Gillison to overtake at this point. But with Simičić there, he's going to have to take, I believe, his second attack mode as well. So that might see this swap around, because there hasn't, of course, been able to see any sort of gaps develop. Although, as come in towards this double hairpin sequence, it's actually very difficult to overtake there. When you see the sliding happen, it sort of blocks off the drivers behind. As, yeah, it's definitely not the easiest driving style to manage. Lap 9 now, Bojan Kalila can't quite keep up with Cabot at the front.
Not quite yet, but we are on to the penultimate lap, into the final sector as well. So a lap and a third left to go of the 10-lap charge race here for the London finale, the Formula E Accelerate Championship in 2023. Of course, with Freddie Rasmussen away for other commitments, we are going to crown a new champion here today. Who is it going to be? Risto Caput putting his best foot forward in the charge race in order to make a statement and say he has arrived here today. Petter Burlak hanging on to some good points here in 10th, and as you say, 10 points for 5th, 0 for 6th. That's a huge disparity and a huge advantage for the top 5 going forward.
Yeah, the points are going to be looking very tasty. Everyone's so close together already, because we've had a couple of drivers not show up. The likes of Freddie Rasmussen, who's actually been the champion the last 2 years as well, 22 and 21. Freddie Rasmussen from Red Bull Racing Esports was the champion that time round. So I should say we're going to get a new champion, and as it stands, Risto Caput is going to be getting the first 25 points. Just got half a lap to go to hold on to this one. He's been very controlled at the front, actually. We haven't seen him make any sort of mistakes, and even for Bojan Kalila, they've managed to pull away nicely from the guys behind.
They have. Unfortunately for Bojan Kalila, he's not quite been able to get onto the back of Caput. They've sort of reached this awkward stalemate between the two of them, but Caput, Bojan Kalila both kept themselves composed. Both have hit their marks really, really nicely, and now into the final sector. Lucas Müller, biggest gainer of this race, up 3 places from where he started. That is a massive, massive gains. We talk about how difficult it is to overtake, but if you're clever about it, like Lucas Müller has been, he's now making the most of his points. So he's in a decent position for the main race, 12 points for the charge as well, and now into the penultimate corner, here comes Risto Caput.
And the charge race is going to be won by Neo 333's Risto Caput across the line, celebrating his way to 25 points and the first victory of the afternoon. Not the best qualifying, but of course that put him on pole position, and he just led the way absolutely comfortably. Bojan Kalila will come home in second place, Brendan Lee in third.
Yeah, fantastic race, of course, for all 3 of them. Lucas Müller, as I say, up 3 places into 4th. Simičić, I think, made the most of that race, getting into 6th place, getting that fastest lap. It's a point at the end of the day. I suppose that's better than nothing. He's made the most of his situation. But yeah, that top 4, huge, huge stuff and huge gains in that race.
Yeah, that was certainly definitely a bit more of a calm race than I was expecting. So actually maybe what we're seeing from the drivers is that they're not sort of able to overtake in the same way. So I wonder when we get into the longer race, because there's 28 laps for the main race. So it's almost 3 times as long. They have quite a few more opportunities, and obviously with the tyres wearing, that's if they're going to add in something different. But I definitely think we saw a few tactics going on there with the qualifying, where people put themselves for that reverse grid.
Yeah, these drivers have done insane amounts of prep coming in to this event. I mean, not to mention just on track time, but researching. I mean, I just saw a couple of them stood behind each other's rigs, watching what they were doing, seeing if they could just gain a little bit extra from their competitors, making the most of what they've got at hand. Because at this level, that's what you got to do, Cam. You can't just, I mean, obviously drive better, but it's not always as easy as that.
Yeah, it's not easy, because as we saw in qualifying, it's just tenths of a second here and there, and in the race as well, when everyone is so close. We saw at one point in the tower, everyone was basically just within fractions of a second. But let's get an interview. Scott is with Risto.
Risto, that looked like a very controlled performance there, but how did it feel from the cockpit?
Oh man, first of all, I'm so lucky to get this reverse grid pole. I mean, I didn't put it in the wall on purpose. In the qualifying, it just happened. But yeah, I got lucky. The guys behind started fighting. My race pace is not that good, and to get these 25 points from this race, it's amazing. It's more than I hoped to get from the whole event. So I'm really happy. And now it means I can take it quite easy in the second race. I can see as the guys ahead take themselves out, and I have actually a really good chance. So I'm so happy. And it's so easy to put it in the wall here, even if you're alone without pressure. The corners are kind of edged so that you can get stuck there and just crash out. So it's always so tense, but I'm so happy. I'm so relieved.
Well, you made that race look so easy. What was your focus from the cockpit?
I mean, just every upcoming corner, one by one. I didn't really have a flow. I could hear what the commentators are saying. You can see what others are doing. There's nowhere to hide here. You can't really get in a flow, but you remember your braking points. You know where you are, and it just worked out for me this time. So yeah.
Fantastic, congratulations, and now on to the main race. So we're just going to head to a quick break before we do start that main race. Welcome back, everyone. We've just seen a fascinating charge race. Congrats again to Risto Capit, but now it's time for the main race and time to see who takes home today's prize. So let's get back into the action and head over to Cam and Zach.
Yeah, that was certainly a bit of an interesting race, actually. Obviously, Capit wasn't quite expecting to take that race victory, but he'll now go back to 8th position. And of course, we'll see David Mocek go back to pole position as we have this next race is from the qualifying order. So that's going to change things around. And by our quick maths, never trust commentators' math, but we see that Yanni Simicic and Risto Capit are tied on 34 points each coming into this last race. So it's going to be neck and neck between the two, and it's going to be really exciting to see who comes out on top.
Well, let's trust how good we are at making spreadsheets, not the maths. That does it for us, but yeah, we'll hope. At the moment, it looks very, very exciting. That's obviously in the overall. Of course, we have got 2 championships. Today in London is the big one. That's obviously who gets crowned champion, who gets to join alongside Freddie Rasmussen as the Formula E Accelerate champion. But we have also got the combined total Berlin, Rome, London. That in of itself is essentially another prize pool. What we have here today is 10k, 4.5 for the winner, another set of that for the overall winner. So 2 things to fight for, 2 things on those drivers' minds, but I suppose the crown, the title means a little bit more to them.
Yeah, I think this next race is going to be a little bit more difficult because with how the points work, obviously from that reverse race, when it goes back, they're just going to cancel each other out on the points as such if they finish in similar positions. So we're really looking at who's going to be winning this race. They're going to be getting 50 points. So we're saying the leaders at the moment have 34 points each. The winner of this next race gets 50 points. So already there's a big disparity that's going to be coming from that, which is why winning this race is going to be so important. Of course, it's a bit longer, as we're saying. It's a 28-lap race. How do you think the driver's going to approach that compared to the 10-minute sprint race that we took?
Well, the idea of sprint racing is flat out, go, go, go. Don't really care about much, don't care about your battery, don't care about how much of your tyres you're using, especially if you're sort of outside that top 5, it was go, go, go. Completely from the start, don't miss any opportunity. Now though, you have got a bit more to think about. It's not just about driving, it's about staying calm, it's about consistency, a little bit of energy management. The drivers were saying they're not too worried, but again, that attack mode, they've got a little bit longer of deployment to use, they've got to think about it a bit more. They've also got to think about their actions because, yeah, 10-lap race, you've not really got long to make opportunities work. But in this 28-lap race, you've got to think long-term. You've got to think, if I go for that move, where am I going to be in 20 laps' time? How am I going to set myself up to cross the line in the highest pace possible?
I think you bring the attack mode into that's going to be very crucial because what we saw was they had to use it twice in 10 laps. Now it's twice in 28 laps. So you can have the difference between your opponent be a lot longer. So you can let them use it, and then you can wait 10 laps before you actually use yours. And I think that's going to be quite a big factor as well, because what you can basically do is you can, especially if you go earlier, if you catch that back up, then by the time that they take theirs, they're going to go back behind you again. So definitely a bit of strategy that's going to come into that. I think that's going to be the main overtaking point of this race. I don't think we're going to see some massive sends because, as you saw in the charge race, even when everyone's pushing 100%, physical side-by-side overtakes are going to be difficult. But reduce your mistakes, do your attack modes at the right time, a bit of race strategy with that, and I think that's going to be how you're going to win this one.
100%. I mean, again, people might be saying, oh, well, there's not standout overtakes. People aren't going side by side for half a lap. It's not going to be an exciting race. That's completely opposite. It's just a different kind of exciting. It's one of those that you think, is he going to make it if he gets the attack mode? Is he going to stay in front of him? Is he going to be able to make the most? And again, it's all good having the attack mode. What do you do with it? It's all good having all the tools, but are you going to be able to use them properly? Are you going to be able to put that lap in, make the most of your, essentially your in-lap and out-lap of the undercut and overcut? We've also got words that a couple of incidents over the course of the charge race.
Yeah, so the stewards down there with the computers, they'll be looking at the incidents, and after the race, I think it was about a 5-minute period where the drivers, once they were done, they could go over to the steward and basically protest an incident. Apparently there's a couple of things that are being looked at, so that may affect obviously the result of that race, and therefore if there's anyone inside that top 5, the points going to be crucial. And as we said, because the points stopped at P5 with 10 points and then 0 for P6, that jump of potentially 10 points for someone could be huge.
100%. You could be losing 2 places, but 10 points, you know, that's massive. Very, very small mistake could exaggerate itself into very, very big consequences. So you've got to be so careful out on circuit. And I suppose you can kind of empathise with the drivers a little bit because especially in that race, it was do or die. It was take it or don't take it. I mean, we even encouraged them to. You know, it's better to do it and fail trying than to not try at all. So respect to them for trying, because they never know what would have happened if they didn't.
And the reason why, of course, as we said, there's a 10k prize pool, and that is split with €4,500 for the winner alone, which is massive. As we said, a lot of these drivers, they are either professional, like semi-professional level. They take it seriously, even if it's sort of in their hobby time as a part-time. They're still, potentially getting paid from their team and whatnot. So this extra potential income for them is going to be very good. That goes down to 2,000 for second place and 1,000 for third place. So that's still a really good total, even if you get third place, and that is why they're fighting for this. And then it goes down by a couple of hundred, basically per position, down to €100 for 10th place.
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, we're pretend race cars, right? That's all it is. And to say I won £1,000 from pretend race cars, essentially, I mean, yes, it's a simulator, and it's a little bit more than that, but fundamental, they're just fake cars going around a fake circuit. And to win that amount of money, it's huge. I mean, yeah, it's not life-changing, but it's an extra bit of change in your back pocket. Who's going to complain about that? And to say you've done it purely on merit by coming here to this massive event with a massive crowd that we've got here today, cheering you on, your team members, your family watching at home, to win a prize like that, I mean, yeah, third place, €1,000 is great, but to then be able to maybe win the title and 4.5k, fantastic.
So let's get the grid for the main race on your screens. Of course, this was from the qualifying that we had not too long ago. And from memory, it was, it seems like it's Burlak who's going to be starting on that pole position, with Isaac Gillison second place for DS Penske on that front row. And then coming in behind, we are going to see Brendan Lee and Jerne Simoncic rounding out your second row. Of course, a very difficult qualifying around here. Lucas Müller in 5th place and Davin Mocek in 6th for the Tag Heuer Porsche machine for the front half of the grid. And coming in 7th place will be Manuel Biancalilla, who just finished 2nd in that race, along with Risto Capit in that 8th place winner of the Charge event. And now Jacob Reed will be in 9th place, Leo Krippner in 10th place, which means it should be Martin Mergley, yes, the final driver for Maserati MSG. So that's your grid for this main race, as the drivers are just all in their rigs and just waiting to get underway. It's certainly going to be a tense time for these drivers. They've just got to sit there. They've got to wait for race control to go for everything, wait for that green light to turn on. It's tricky, just sitting there in your rig waiting to go.
100%. I mean, the thing is, with this format, it's so linear. It's this, with 4 or 5 minutes in between. The adrenaline is so high, spiking, coursing through their veins, and then they just have to sit there. They've done the charge race. They're, for Risto Capit, it's, we saw how much it meant to him winning that race and to do well, and he's now got to sit there with that heart rate, that pumped up, that excitement. And then maybe if you've not done as well in the charge race, maybe if as I say, Davin Mocek maybe not scoring as many points as he would have liked, he's then got to sit in that, maybe that slightly disappointment. I mean, obviously he's on pole for the main race, but they're racing drivers, they want to do well, so they've got a long time just to sit there and let everything come down. But it's a roller coaster. They've spiked, they've dropped back down again, and now in just a couple of moments time they've got to rise back up again, and in the span of minutes they've got to switch from extreme to extreme.
And that is how I guess in some ways this format, the sim racing format, compared to the real format, is actually more intense in some way, because even if you go to your you've got the bigger events like this, but even if you go to your leagues that are just ran by communities out there on forums and websites, the people who run that, it'll be literally qualifying, 5-minute break, straight into the race all the time. Practice, qualifying, warm-up, race. Every league seems to run like that, and of course we've got the same today. It's one after the other. It's not like in real life where you have hours between the sessions. You even got a day. You've got time to sleep. It's definitely a lot different in sim racing. Now, just double checking over the points, of course we said Jerne and Risto were leading the way, but coming in second place, it looks like the Manuel Biancalilla actually taken. That was a really good result from him, and then we're tied in behind with Burlak and Lucas Müller. So it's looking really tight, to be honest, because there's just 12 points separating all 5 of those drivers.
Yeah, it's great, and it's really, really close, which is exactly what we want. We don't want No disrespect to him, we don't want a Marcel Cinčić, right? I mean, I suppose that's the biggest compliment you can get, is that we don't want you, because he over the course of the majors, he ran off with things, he did so well. Again, full respect to him, but that's almost the last thing we want, especially as commentators, as viewers, of you lot in the crowd as well. Cheers for coming along, of course. But that's the last thing we want. We want the top 5 separated by the smallest of amounts, which means that into this race, tensions are high. I mean, they can look at each other, they can look at their rivals and look them dead in the eye. Like, the intensity that is there, and now they've got to deliver 28 laps, do or die, where one mistake could cost you those 12 points between the top 5.
I mean, we saw that with Risto Capit in the qualifying. Ironically, it actually helped him crashing, but he lost his front wing during that qualifying. Imagine if that happens during the race. You have to go into the pit lane, you've got to have your repair time from that. You're going to be going way to the back. You're not going to be getting inside the major points. So that is, I think, why we're obviously a little bit concerned about how this is going to go. But actually, the lights have come on, and your Formula E Accelerate feature race for 2023 is going to get underway. David Mocek on your pole position, Lucas Müller in to the left-hand side of him. Mocek on the outside, coming towards turn 1. Müller sends it in there. Simičić around the outside is going to try and take second place away from him. Müller keeps it up the inside for third place. Aggressive racing here at the side in London.
Yeah, indeed. So Simičić just about keeping his nose ahead. I think he might just be able to get it. They're still side by side going down now into the chicane, and they're so close to contact between the two of them as they emerge still in front. Simičić has worked his way into second place. Lucas Müller losing the front row down to third, and that is racing.
That's so aggressive from Sione, but he knew he had to do it. Coming in towards the hairpin now. How is the battling going to be? I can't tell you how important that was from Simičić. He missed the apex there. Bit of contact in behind with Lucas Müller, and I think Brendan Lee has been able to get through up in towards third place.
Petter Barlak was the one that was able to get through. He's up to third. Brendan Lee down to 7th now, going through the chicane at turn 12 and 13. You can see side by side there, Müller maybe with a little bit of damage onto the front end of his Neil McLaren. I think he might actually have a little bit onto that front end.
Wow, what a hectic start here in London, side by side. We've got Jacob Reed there and Risto Capit going side by side into turn 16, but they worked their way through. And you're right, it was actually Barlak there who managed to get through. And actually, that McLaren's got no front wing. Lucas Müller lost his front wing in the midst of all that. That's literally what I was just saying 30 seconds ago. Now he's going to have to come in, repair that, and drop all the way to the back, surely.
Yeah, I guess if you want it to happen, it'll be on the opening lap. He's not come into the pit lane, though, which tells me it's not that bad. He should still be able to continue on, but definitely fighting with some frustration.
Wow, what a hectic opening lap here for the Formula E Accelerate Championship 2023, of course, going for the 10 grand prize pool just from today's 2 races. Risto Capit was a winner in that first charge race, but this is now your pole position man of David Mocek leading the way. Of course, fastest lap on that first lap, starting on pole position. Fastest lap also gets an extra 2 points for this race, so that could be important later on in this race.
It could be indeed, of course. It's the normal FIA point system. 25 for a win, that's now 50, and not only does that double the points, there's Lucas Müller going side by side with Manuel Biancalilla. No way past for the Italian, already moving his way forward in this race, second in the charge, trying now to fight his way forward. Brendan Lee was in such a good position coming in with his podium, of course, in the charge race, now coming in, of course, in 4th place on this race. He was looking so good, and now he's got to fight back again.
And this, how the race has worked out now, it shows you why Simičić made that aggressive move there on that first lap, because A, it's given a bit of gap to Mocek up ahead, so it's just makes it into a 1v1 battle, but also it got him away from this mid-pack. It separated that up a bit, and he hasn't got a whole train of cars around him, so that's why it was so crucial. There is Petter Barlak, who managed to come out in 3rd place as well. This could be a solid result from him, because he hasn't had the best championship so far than I'm sure he would have hoped for.
No, of course not, and well, again, it's why events like this are so good. It's why we have just the standout London Championship, because when it comes to LAN, things can always go a little bit differently than what you'd expect. There are always curveballs to be thrown, and of course, while some people might like the consistency of and the longevity of a very long championship over the course of a year, the intensity of a one-day LAN event to decide it all is massive. Risto Capit, though, of course, our winner in the charge race, not able to make much progress in the early stages of the full race, and now locked in a train. It's the Müller Express.
But of course, we've got attack mode coming up. Look how close everyone is, though. I don't think anyone's going to use it at the moment, because they're going to be losing 1, 2, 3 places from that. You want to try and use your attack mode when you've got clear air behind you, but at some point they have to use it twice over the race. As we're seeing there, who's that? That's second place. Yes, Simičić is going to be taking it, coming towards the hairpin. Biancalilla's going to follow him in as well, and he actually only loses a place from that, so that's not too bad. But as you see, in these early parts of the stage of the race where everyone's so close together, it makes it really tricky to use your attack mode.
It does, because again, it's all about track position. You want to make the most of that extra 50 kilowatts of power. That's a good chunk of top speed, and you don't want to waste it being stuck behind a train of drivers. That's all that's going to do is fuel your frustration and essentially waste an attack mode, because if you can't make the most of it, what's the point of taking it? You're going to take probably, what, 1.5 seconds and track position. It's a big loss initially to take it, and you want to see some return on that investment.
And the good thing actually from Mojek out the front is he's getting a bit of a gap. Behind all contacts, Bianca Lilla, of course, he's on attack mode, he's got more power and is a little bit faster than Brendan Lee ahead of him, and just almost pushing the British driver there through turns 4 and 5 as we come down here. Now through turn 9, onto this back straight. Is that extra power anything enough? Lee goes to the inside, he's going to defend Bianca Lilla all the way around the outside. Is there going to be enough room?
Oh, I don't think so. He's a little bit sideways, nearly clipping the inside wall as well. Goes to the outside for turn 12. Once again, not quite able to get the rotation through 11. Now into 12 and 13. It's all about exit. Put your foot down. And this is where Bianca Lilla is going to be strong on that run in towards turn 16. But the problem is, Cam, it's so bumpy, it's so narrow that even onto the brakes, Bianca Lilla goes to the outside.
And look at the gap on the track map. It's opening up ahead of these guys because they're batting top 5. Really starting to pull a gap. 3 seconds ahead of Lee is Muller. Remember, Muller, I think he's still out there with no front wing. So he's actually doing a really good job. Just showing you that these cars are more about the mechanical grip rather than the aero at the London XL track. And coming out onto the main straight to start lap 5. There's David Mojek in the Porsche livery before we get obviously the cars following him behind. We've got Simičić, Burlak, Gillison and Muller rounding out your top 5.
Fantastic top 5, of course, and a very entertaining opening moment to the main feature race here for the London finale of the Formula E Accelerate Championship. Still a little bit of contact between Manuel Bianca Lilla and Brendan Lee. Bianca Lilla, I think, again, wanting to use that power, wanting to get some clear air to go faster, but there's just no way through, because if he goes side by side, Cam, it's wall, essentially. There's no other way through.
Yeah, there's no runoff around here. As you see, it's literally concrete barrier left and right, basically every part of the track. The only one that really opens up a little bit is like the hairpin and then turn 1 as well. So difficult, really difficult racetrack around here at the London E-Prix. Here's Lucas Muller, still on the track, no front wing, but he's keeping the pace. I'm really surprised by this, just showing you. Oh, huge slide there for the DS Penske of Gillison just up ahead.
Yeah, that was huge. I mean, we talk about getting the rear end out. That is an extreme, and that is going to be very, very costly. Myself and Cam, we've been touching on how sensitive these rear wheels are. Of course, that's where all of the power goes to. Yes, they've got a front-mounted motor, but rear wheel drive essentially, and to slide them up, especially in attack mode and things like that, and the longevity of these tyres, doing that is definitely not going to help, especially when you rely on them so much. Talking about mechanical grip, you need those tyres in check.
You certainly do, and also the thing with the rear tyres is there's no brakes. As funny as it sounds, there's no brakes on the rear of this car. It's all regens, all the regen motors. There's no physical brake disc and pads that you'll be used to on your standard road car, and that is why the rear is so sensitive, because as you go over the bumps and everything, the regen is sort of working its magic and working around. It's not quite as consistent as a normal brake pedal. And as you come onto lap 6 now, as you see the field is starting to stretch out. We're starting to see these gaps while everyone's starting to sort of use their attack mode and work their way. But remember, twice they got to use that attack mode during the race.
They do, and it's a very key portion of the strategy aspect of it. Jacob Reed, of course, here in P9, he's not really too used to rFactor 2 as a whole, very focused sort of on the iRacing oval scene. So this is very unfamiliar ground to him. Fighting inside the top 10 though, and on the back of Risto Capit, and we know from the charge race how good Capit is. So Reed having a really strong race there.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's not necessarily the fastest driver here, as we're seeing the Maserati of Mergoli go into attack mode. But he's definitely not the fastest driver here, but he's still able. He's qualified himself for this competition. He's got himself into the top 11, and if he can actually keep himself clean, he might be able to get a decent race. There is the Jaguar of Yanni Semičić coming through. He's just pulling Peter Burlak along. They've got a decent gap actually opening up behind.
They do indeed. Of course, great day in the office for Best Esport. David Mojek, Yanni Simičić have been teammates for quite some time now, a number of years fighting at the top level across sim racing, especially rFactor 2 with the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. Both of them front runners in that. They know what it's like to win in open wheels, and now they're just controlling the pace out in front. I don't know how much talking they've done beforehand, what their game plan is coming into today, but that natural team chemistry here means that to lock out the front two places on a track that means so much in terms of holding track position, Mojek and Simičić are in control.
Yeah, you're right. Obviously, Mocek and Simicic, teammates in the esports team of Burst Esports. Next to you, of course, Burlak in behind. He's there for Alpine Esports as well. So some of the more top names around there. And as you were mentioning from the sim racing earlier, Simicic, 3-time champion, Burlak, world champion in that series as well. So they definitely know what they're doing in open wheel specifications. There's definitely a bit of a difference to their driving style compared to some GT styles, as we see from some of the other drivers. Here is your battle a little bit further down. Gillison in 4th place, Muller in that 5th in behind, really keeping I'm so surprised he's been able to keep that pace, to be honest. I wasn't expecting to see that, but that just shows you that imagine if Muller was able to keep 2nd place from Simicic at the front, he'd be fighting with Mocek.
Oh, 100%. And again, Muller coming in today was one of the favourites. His confidence, he's just walking around, he's got that buzz about him, you'll chat to him and he feels good, he's quite a chill guy, but he knows how good he is, he knows what he wanted to expect coming out of today. It's a shame, obviously, that's sort of how it goes with sim racing and racing in general, that you can't always count on your pace alone because you're essentially trusting other people. That initial battle with Simicic, yes, it did let him down, but the fact that he is able to stay on the pace in 5th place, I think speaks volumes up Formula E, because you do that in Formula 1, you lose your front wing in Formula 1, race over, but now he's still inside the top 5.
Yeah, doing such a great job so far, I'd say. As we're getting towards the 3rd race distance here, and on the track map on the top right, really seeing David Mocek open it up. We do expect that the battery around here can go into the 30 lap count, because you've only got 28. There's Gillison. That's a bit too much of a spin there for Muller. Couldn't get Gillison. Unfortunately, Gillison's got a free attack mode there actually. But yeah, certainly it's not the easiest place around here, that's for sure. And what we've actually been seeing with how it's worked out is, as the field has sort of spread out and things have calmed down, everyone's sort of got themselves into a little group, a little pack, a little duo of pace, and that's really going to be the ones that we're seeing. We're seeing there, we've got 2 and 3 next to each other, 4 and 5, and 6 and 7.
They do indeed. And now Muller, and that's the thing with attack mode, is that when a driver in front of you, directly in front of you, takes it, you need to get in front, right? There's no two ways about it, and that has let Muller down, unfortunately. Gillison, as you say, essentially got a free attack mode, which is going to be massive for Muller's race, because that's a big loss. He could have got that track position, effectively gaining a second or so, and now he's on the back foot, which is really going to tarnish him. Obviously, that initial contact tarnished him ever so slightly, but now even more so. Look at the rotation they've got. Gillison and Muller both directly on the limit, and that's how you have to be, not just for one lap in qualifying, Cam, the entire 28 lap race.
And that's why it's so difficult. When you're on the limit like that, you have to perfect every single lap. And when you start seeing, that's a huge wiggle there on the bumps as well for Gillison. Around the outside of attack mode is Muller, but can he get out in front? Yes, he can. He get Brendan Lee, that was, for 6th place.
That was indeed, and again, I suppose that's great for Muller, because he can stay in front of Brendan Lee and retain that track position of course. Lap 9 of 28, we're about to round it off and head through onto lap 10. David Mocek, look at the command that he's got over Simicic. We got this train behind Isaac Gillison. Fantastic close racing. 5 seconds.
Yeah, that was the point I was getting to a little bit earlier. Because we're saying we can get into the 30 lap count, they don't have to save too much, if at all, around here. So this is pretty much full push around there. The only reason why you would save as such is just to keep those rear tyres in check. As we're seeing Gillison, I wonder if he's struggling on the tyres. Look at this, already sliding through these corners that we're not seeing. Usually it's just a hairpin that we're seeing people sliding, but it's the other corners as well. So this is a really tricky situation for Gillison, because he's in a good place in 4th, but look at everyone bunching up behind.
Yeah, it is everyone queuing up behind Gillison. Even Muller is stuck behind him, and he's not got a front wing to depend on for a little bit more aerodynamic downforce. 10 laps into the race though, Cam, that's just about the distance that we just had in the charge race.
I was just thinking, actually, this might be quite good for Muller. He's got no front wing, so even though it's not the biggest gain of front downforce, that means the balance is going to go to the rear, be a bit understeery, and it might actually help his rear tyres. So this might work actually for Lucas Muller. Of course, he would have preferred to be in 2nd place with a front wing, but at least that is the situation we're in. And look how slow Gillison is here, coming up through this final sector. Brendan Lee all over the back of the pair of them, and Muller up the inside, maybe into the penultimate corner.
Thought about it, he definitely thought about it, but decided better of it. Again, you go for those moves, you have to be sure that it's going to pay off, because the last thing you want is to be sprinting off to the stewards in the 5 minutes after the race. You want to make the most of the on-track action, and you don't want to be driving with that side by side. Actually, Muller going for it into turn 1, Isaac Gillison still sideways, Lee and Muller's down to 9th.
Muller's gone for a spin somewhere. Muller must have made contact at turn 1, yeah, done a pirouette. He's dropped back behind Lee, Biancalilla, Capit and Reed. All those drivers getting past. A nightmare race for Muller.
Absolutely, and the one that matters most, essentially for Muller, just missing out on pole position and losing out on those 6 points, and now down to 9th. It's heartbreak for the German, who was wanting to add this to his tally, but unfortunately he's stuck at the back end of this train without a front wing, and surely a damaged morale. We talk about time and time again, no matter what broadcast we're on, Cam, the mentality side of things is so vital, and Muller surely is down in the dumps.
Yeah, it is a shame. As you said, we were speaking to him yesterday. He was so confident, he definitely had the pace, but sometimes the race goes his way. But now, what can he do? There's still 17 laps to go, remember. He can get all those drivers ahead if he works his way through one by one. The issue is he's going to have to be even more aggressive, and with the understeer now he's got with the lack of front wing, he's really going to be, I'd say, struggling. But as I said, maybe it's going to help the tyres, so maybe the last 5-10 laps he might be okay.
Maybe so. He is playing the long game here, and the longevity of the tyres, I mean, as you say, a front wing, you lose a little bit, but these Formula E cars, they're not overly dependent on them. They're not gaining, seconds a lap from the intricacies of the front wing. It's more in the tyres, it's more in the feel, and of course, if you can keep them in check, and like we saw with Gillison, who's sliding around before even the halfway point of this race, that's going to be vital, and it might be where Müller can maybe get a saving grace.
So it looks like that was the investigation was Lee and Krippner. I'm not sure if that was in the charge race or if it was in this race, but that is the incident that we were talking about earlier. So the stewards will be looking at that, or will be making a deliberation. Will that affects the points later? So let them do their job, and we'll get back to you on the result of that one. For now, we're on lap 12 of 28, so coming up very quickly to halfway in this feature race for the London Formula E Accelerate Championship 2023. Got €10,000 on the line just for the results of this race, and of course we got one for the result of the overall championship. There's Jacob Reed trying to take his attack mode as Lucas Müller gets him.
He does indeed, just about losing out on that place. Lucas Müller able to get himself up to 8th place. Bit of a tap on the wall there. Hopefully that doesn't damage his steering alignment too much, because especially around street circuits like this, the last thing you want is a little bit of excessive toe in.
Well, we've also got another incident. We've got Gillison and Müller as well. So actually, apologies, the one before wasn't actually correct. This is the correct incident that should have been shown. Gillison with Müller. That must have been into maybe like turn 1. So definitely a few things for the stewards to be looking at, Zach, and I wonder how that obviously affects the mentality of these drivers, knowing that they could potentially gain something later on.
Potentially so. Of course, I mean, again, the stewarding team that we've got here, they've got their experience in sim racing. They know how to deal with this, but it's one of the fewest jobs that I would want. It's very, very low down on my list of jobs I'd want in sim racing, because no one's ever happy. You're always going to have disagreements, and some of the time they're so hard to call to get to a positive outcome. So obviously Müller is going to want Gillison to have a penalty. Gillison is going to say, well, I wasn't left enough space, and blah 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 blah, spirit of racing, it's a tight chicane, this, that and the other. So there's always two sides of the coin, and you just have to really judge which side of the coin is more favorable. Does it land on heads, does it land on tails? Into attack mode, no one really taking it once again. That's going to be a very tough call. We didn't get to see it obviously on the live feed, we were on board with Gillison, but there was a car's width on the inside, right?
It definitely looked like it. Of course, we didn't see the best angle. It would have been better for the onboard of the other one, but of course, live racing, that's what you get. The stewards will have all of the angles, so they'll be able to go back and have a look. And here's Jacob Reed with the attack mode. He's still got just a few seconds left of it, I believe, and he's all over the back of Müller. Couldn't get to that time around. Müller defends to the inside, coming towards turn number 1. Are we going to see an on-track overtake in towards the first goal sectors? Reed around the outside.
He is. He's tried to get the up and under. Has he got the inside going into turn 3? Has to back out of it. Of course, still in attack mode. Got that extra 50 kilowatts of power and is all over the back of Lucas Müller. No decision made at this time. Is the update from the investigation in regards to Gillison and Müller. So we'll keep you updated, of course, as to the outcome of that particular incursion. But look at the Mahindra car of Jacob Reed all over the back of Müller. And again, Jacob Reed, no disrespect to him, probably wasn't one of the names we were talking about as being successful. Müller, one of the favourites, and it just shows how this format can really condense the field. One of the favourites, one of those that maybe we weren't going to talk about as much, fighting out and out on track.
And it's definitely with those 11 drivers as well. If a couple of drivers have issues like we've seen with Müller, etc., they are the ones you can pick off and really start to work your way forward. As we see this Six-car train, Capit there goes for the... Is he going to actually... I think he just lost the place. Unfortunately, yes, Muller managed to get him. So Muller's gained 2 places there because of the attack mode for other drivers. As Gillison's really slowed down here. You can see on the track map, top right-hand side, you're seeing screen the top 3 drivers. It's really starting to pull away now. Well, Mojcik leading the way by quite some way. Then we got Simičić in behind with that all-important fastest lap. That's 2 extra points for Simičić as it stands, with Berlak in 3rd place.
Simičić very good on that 1 lap pace. He got the fastest lap in the charge, gave him an extra point, and now it's doubled. He now gets 2 for the main race, plus obviously the 36 points, and crucially is ahead of Risto Capit. But the thing about double points, Cam, is effectively it doubles the difference between the 2 places. So already in that FIA point system, you get rewarded for a race win by 7 points from 1st to 2nd. Now it's 14 points difference, which is a huge reward for Mojcik to have that place over Simičić, and is really going to help him in the overall standings, considering of course that both of them didn't finish inside the points in that first charge race. Mojcik is looking really comfortable.
So let's actually have a look at the points. The gap between Mojcik as it stands is 24 points with Jerne Simičić, so I think Jerne should still have enough. He finishes in 2nd place to take the overall win. Oh, almost up the inside there from Brendan Lee. I think that Simičić is looking good for the overall still, but of course we will work out with just a couple laps to go, as anything can happen in this accelerate race. Gillison really starting to slow down. Lee is getting a little bit impatient. This is for 4th place, of course. Lee's actually got a faster lap as well than Gillison, so he's definitely looking good in the avalanche, and the rear tyres are starting to go for Gillison.
And the thing is that for Gillison, it's not just one problem, it's a snowball effect. You slide, the rears go off, the rear goes off, you slide, the rears goes off. That's huge over the curb, nearly losing the car. Here comes Brendan Lee to the inside of turn 3, not quite able to make it stick. Gillison though is struggling. He's got to combat his issues. Bit of contact between the 2. Gillison sent sideways, but that's the problem. Gillison is struggling. He's got the tyre problems, and now he's got the pressure from the 2-time esports champion.
Yeah, this is getting really close between the 2 of them, and I can't wait to see how this one's going to work out. Actually, can Gillison hold on for almost half the race, to be honest? Sliding once again. I think he's really starting to struggle. Oh, massive slide once again, which really should get used to that, but can't quite through that sequence of corners. And if we were to go off-board camera as well, you'll just see the train behind. It's a 6-car train for 4th place.
It is, it's huge, it's so competitive, and it's exactly what we like to see in this format of racing. Yes, it is very different, as Cam said. We're not used to cars deliberately going sideways, because that's just how you have to drive these cars. It's not like your typical driving style where it's brake in a straight line, bring it smooth to the apex, apply the throttle nice and smoothly. Formula E is very rugged, very raw, very chuck it in and get the car to grip up, force it to rotate with that back end rather than relying on the front end. And I suppose it really does open the door for different styles of driving to succeed. Those that aren't maybe as smooth can really succeed in Formula E. But you're walking a tightrope, aren't you, Cam? Because too little and you're not quick enough, too much and you drop off at the end.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest actual forms of racing, to say the truth. It's very difficult around here, and it's something that you have to actually get used to. It's not the easiest way to overcome the style of racing change between a normal race. Normally, of course, you have I don't know how to explain, but just the way you have to drive these cars, it's just so on the limit here and there. You don't have any time to sort of breathe. You're always fully pushing, you're fully at the limit, and you're really trying to make some time up. Whereas when you're, say, a GT car or something, it's all more planted. It's a lot more sort of slow with the weight transfer. It can be just a little bit more calm with the driving style.
It can be, and I suppose you can get into a little bit of a rhythm. You can relax with that. Oh my word, Gillison sideways. That sort of bunched everyone back up. Lee sideways, into the inside. Biancalillo trying to work his way to the inside through 17. Now in towards the chicane near at 18. Then of course up the hill again. Biancalillo not quite able to find a way through, but that chain reaction. Gillison now's got a bit of breathing room, but still a bit of contact. Biancalillo being so aggressive to Lee.
Oh my lord, so much contact between the two. As we come out through the final corner, this has actually let Gillison off the hook. He's got up the road by a second or so for that 4th place. These drivers really are starting to bunch up. It's into a 5-way battle now for that 5th place. I think Biancalillo is obviously being very aggressive to try and get past, but the fact is Lee is putting his car in the right place.
He is, and that's so important. Again, talking to the burst boys of Davor Mojcik and Jerne Simičić, of course as teammates they can sort of do race sims and things. As long as you plant the car in the right place, you can't find a way past. As long as you're clever with it, as long as you're clean with it, and as long as you get good exits, you're almost a brick wall to find a way past. So Lee, of course, using his experience, he's been in this exact situation plenty of times in his sim racing career before. He knows how to handle it. But I suppose with the crown of Formula E Accelerate champion on the line, £4,500 for the winner on the line. It does sort of raise the stakes ever so slightly, but as long as they go to that ground routes, what they know how to do best, they should be fine. Spaced out ever so slightly, no major attacks going into turn 16, but Cam, it's a very, very short fuse, and connected to that is probably a very, very big bomb.
That is actually a very good way of putting it. As the drivers obviously work their way through the race, the tension builds up. And when you start having a little bit of context like that, you go, oh, there goes Gillison out of the penultimate corner. He must have spun up the rear tyres, and he's dropping down the way. This gives Brendan Lee 4th place, Bianca Lilla 5th, and Gillison, after holding on for over half this race, lap 18 was his the one that he became unstuck, and unfortunately has dropped down to 19th place. And along with Muller, he joins another driver to lose wings here.
Oh wow, that is huge for Gillison, but a long time coming, it must be said. Those tyres were struggling, and it's the difference in driving from the charge to the main race is that you've got to be so careful, you've got to nurse the tyres, and it's not easy in Formula E machinery, particularly the Gen 3, because as we've said, they've not got intricate wings both on the front and on the rear. I mean, that rear wing is almost non-existent, which gives the rear tyres near enough no help. Is Berlak and Lee are now fighting potentially for what could be 3rd place very, very shortly, but you've got nearly no help on the rear, which means you've got to do it essentially in your left and your right foot, under braking and under acceleration. You get either of those wrong, and those rear tyres, they're just going to spin up, they're going to overheat, and it's almost impossible, especially in a format like this, an intensity like this, to take a couple of laps and lift off a bit. You can't afford to do that.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the point standings, and as it stands, it looked like for the overall, including the Berlin and Rome Major, we're looking at Jani Simincic leading his teammate David Mrocek in that regard. But for today, the charge race and the feature race put together, along with the points for quali and the fastest laps as it stands, it looks like David Mrocek is looking good for that. Of course, winning this race, but it's the points from the charge race being added in as well. So Mrocek, with that pole, the 6 points for pole, plus the effectively the bonus of the double points, winning the race as well, is looking good for today, but we still have 9 laps to go, including this one.
Yeah, still a long time to go, and in racing all it takes is one corner, 1 split second to change your race upside down. So still countless opportunities for things to go wrong, and of course a long time left in this race. Into the 20s now, and Mrocek still able to lead the way, 10 seconds clear nearly of his teammate Jani Simincic. That's a huge, huge gap to have, and I suppose it's both a good thing and a bad thing, isn't it, Cam? I guess being out in front, he can settle in, get into a rhythm, not be really under any pressure, but also the fact that he's not under pressure, he is going to relax, he is going to lift off slightly, maybe get himself into that false sense of security. He needs to be so careful not to let his mind slip.
Yes, but the good thing for him though is that with the gap that he's got, he can make a couple of mistakes as such. The issue is mistakes around here, they cost you not only time but front wings and things like that. So yes, you are right. You have to keep in a rhythm, you have to keep at your pace. If you slow down, you're actually more likely to make mistakes. I think the person who's actually really going to struggle a little bit potentially these last couple of laps is Simincic, because of that pressure that Berlak is coming in behind.
Yeah, of course, you can look on the track map. We're riding on board with Simincic, or at least we were. He's now going through 7 and 8. That was the highlighted blue one. And Berlak, that 3rd place car, is closing in. He's charging forward. He did both in the sprint race and now in the main race as well. Definitely looking strong in race trim, and now closing on to the back. 2 Formula Sim Racing World Champions, 2 absolute veterans when it comes to sim racing, open wheel sim racing at that, rFactor 2 sim racing at that. They've come to blows before, they've had their battles. It's 2 tyrants of sim racing batting it out now for 2nd place.
Yeah, certainly getting very, very close between these drivers. They know that their opportunities are running out, and that is of course going to be something that comes into it when you get a bit more tension, you get a bit more aggression in the final couple of laps. We've seen it aggressive already, but when it gets desperate, actually that's the word I'm looking for, when it gets desperate at the end of the race, that is going to be definitely an opportunity for some other places to come. I see Jacob Reed here currently in that 8th place, chasing down. He's got Muller and Cabot just out the way. This gap, this battle's actually spread out a little bit. Gillison was sort of bunching them up, but now the he's sort of out of the way, the roadblocks out of the way, the pace is opening them up.
Yeah, Gillison was a bit of a mobile chicane in that sense, you know, backing everyone up, slowing the pace down, and now we get a better idea of what's going on. I suppose it's a little bit unfortunate for Jacob Reed, who might not be as on the pace. I mean, talking to him, very nice guy and very keen, very, very quick, as I say, in the iRacing side of things. He's got a decently high iRacing for those that are familiar with the platform. He's very, very good, very confident in multiple disciplines of racing, does a little bit of the oval and the road, so it's good to be versatile in both. But again, when it comes to Formula E, when it comes to rFactor 2, not quite as experienced as the rest. So he was almost counting on Gillison to close the pack back up, to use his fundamental racing experience of how to deal with trains to better his position. With Capit, with Muller, maybe they sort of go a bit argy-bargy, bring Reed back into the mix. But I suppose 8th place, definitely better than nothing for Jacob Reed. Following on with Peter Berlak, he has got that TCS Jaguar livery car of Jone Simincic firmly in his sights.
And Jone was a little bit wide in that hairpin there, turn 16. I wonder, was he trying to take attack mode or something, or was that just a mistake? Is that a couple of mistakes creeping in? We'll certainly have to see, as lap 22 is the one they're on now, on to lap 23, of course, so it's getting right to the end of the race, 6 laps left, including that one. And this is when you can't let your mind sort of slow down. You have to keep that hype going, you have to keep that concentration going towards the end of this race. But of course, it's Mrocek leading Simincic, Berlak for your podium, Lee and Biancalilla in behind for that 4th-5th battle. And here is your next 3 drivers. 6th place, Capit, of course, who won the charge race a little bit earlier, followed by Muller and Reed. It's certainly been an interesting sort of race in terms of drivers moving up and down. Capit was down in sort of 9th place at one point, made up some places over the race.
Yeah, I mean, we almost expected it to be a little bit of a quiet race, quite a tame race, but it's been exactly the opposite. Really exceeded our expectations in terms of the standard of driving. People have gone for moves. We have had trains develop. We have seen that strategy play a factor. Lucas Müller really using that rear end rotation to effectively cancel out the fact that he's not got a front wing, and still on the pace with Risto Capit, who would have wanted more, but he still managed to make his way forward, which again just goes to show, yes, overtaking is difficult. Is off the road there. That is Brendan Lee.
Oh, it's contact with Biancalilla as he jumps on. I don't think he would have got attack mode by doing that if that was his intention, because you sort of have to go round the line that's sort of highlighted and glowing. That's the line you have to go through. If you go over the line, you know, the other side of it, I don't think it picks it up, so he probably doesn't have the attack mode, which means he'll have to do it again, which is the important bit. So as we've seen, the attack mode doesn't necessarily gain you loads of time, but it's more the loss, and he's got to now do the loss for a 3rd time in the race.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that if you're going to do it, you want to do it first time. I think the rule is you've got to get 3 tyres and the majority of the car over both sensors. You've got the one initially on the entry of the attack mode and then the one on the exit, so you can't just take the entry and then cut back for a late apex of the hairpin. You've got to go all the way around the outside of turn 16, and just a little bit too deep, I think, from Brendan Lee. Not quite exactly what he would have wanted, and now he's got to take that run of it again. Biancalilla is going to be there, he's going to be hungry, he is going to know that as well. He knows that Brendan Lee is probably fair game.
Yeah, and Biancalilla he's been almost a surprise driver today, actually, with how fast he's been overall, and he's actually looking pretty good. So I'll just try and do a quick mental math. About 4th, 5th place overall, which isn't obviously too bad coming into this one. Jacob Reed now coming downhill in towards turn 16. There it is, actually, for Lee finally taking the attack mode, so he did miss it last time around. Bit of contact with Biancalilla on the exits as well, so you actually got away with that one, not losing the place both times.
Thankfully, that would have been almost disastrous, I think, if he was able to take the attack mode and lose the position. So I think he's sort of been given a second chance of that one, and well, hopefully it's not going to end in disaster for Brendan Lee, who I have to say again, with the troubles that have come his way, with the fact that you know, he's not been able to quite practice as much as the ones around him today. He's done a lot behind the scenes. Obviously now representing R8G as an esports team. He won the championship F1 esports with Mercedes, moved to Ferrari for a little bit, now again with R8G. So much support with R8G, and they just seem to be on top of the world in sim racing recently. Yeah, they've been winning some good competitions. You are correct in that. Yeah, they've been putting a lot, and I mean a lot of effort
there behind the scenes, and they've certainly been getting to the top level, and it just shows you Lee, as you're mentioning, of course, coming from the world of F1 esports, different simulation than what we're on. Everything handles a bit differently, you know, physics slightly different, that sort of thing, so to obviously go between the two is a very good job indeed. Bianca Lilla also struggling to keep up, and that is obviously how Brendan Lee was able to get away and hold on. There's Lee again. Did he miss it? Don't tell me he missed it 2 laps in a row, as he was somehow, for the 3rd lap in a row, takes the attack mode and holds on to position. This is a crazy stuff from Lee, but he's doing what he needs to do to hold on to 4th place.
3rd time's the charm, I suppose, and Lee is going to be hoping that it has done the charm, because obviously when it comes to attack mode, it's not an automatic deployment. If you get the sensor, rFactor 2 gives you the option to change the battery mapping, the power mapping, to go from 300 kilowatts that you get normally in the race to essentially the quali map of 350. So Brendan Lee is probably going to be spamming the change button to see if it's actually given it to him. Hopefully it has, because now into the closing stages, he's not got a lot of time in order to activate that attack mode.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't. That is also what we were saying earlier. In the 10 lap races, you basically had to use it very quickly, and the people could predict when you were going to use it. In a 28 lap race, there's a whole window of opportunity where you could do it, and maybe actually Lee was saving his attack modes a bit later on, because I don't know if we saw him do it actually in the first parts of the race. Here is the Nissan liveried driver of Peter Berlak. He's getting closer, I think, Zach, to Simičić up ahead.
Yeah, but catching's one thing, passing's another, staying in front is another thing entirely, and all in a span of, 2.5 laps that they've got left, even less. Simičić, of course, is not going to give this one up easy as well, so I think everything is against Berlak. The only thing he's got going for him is his pace. He's got the advantage over Simičić in this stage of the race. It's going to be so difficult for him to get in front, though, because Simičić, as we say, he knows where to put the car, he knows how to drive the car, how to brake, how to accelerate, what lines to take, when to defend. It's going to be tough for Berlak to do it in this time frame.
You know what? I am surprised at the gap between Mrocek and Simičić. Of course, coming into this, Simičić was leading the championship as such, or he was the highest placed driver, I should say, that qualified for this. So we thought he was really going to be leading the way. Mrocek struggled, didn't he, in the Rome, in the Berlin majors? Was it 15th and 11th place, something like that? Yeah. And all of a sudden, comes to the land race, you get confident. Everyone's on a level platform, but if you just get that feeling about the car, you can definitely do well. And of course, 1 to lap 27, 1.5 laps to go in this race.
Yeah, this is where it's going to get a little bit tense for Mrocek, because he's done such a good job up until now, but as I said a few laps ago, it can change in a split second. One mistake, like we saw with Risto Capit in qualifying, that mistake into the hairpin, yes, it gave him the charge race victory in the end, of course, but it has put him on the back foot for this race. But David Mrocek, yeah, I mean, P15, P11, that was his Berlin results over qualifying in the race. A little bit better going into Rome with P7 and P8 in quali in the race, and then he arrives today. He's a new man. Of course, David Mrocek so quick, but of course, no way.
No way.
Take it again.
Brendan Lee for the 4th time in 4 laps or 5 laps is unfortunately this time loses his place, but he takes that attack mode, so that at least twice he missed the zone, which shows you how difficult it is. Bianca Lilla gets up into 4th place, and with just 1 lap to go, this could be crucial, because did Lee miss it again, he might have to take it on this last lap, which means Capit could be looking at 5th place as we come to start the final lap here of Formally Accelerate 2023.
Don't look out. Look out for Miller as well. I mean, keep him in the loop, because if Lee does have to take it again, maybe he took them, in succession, did one, straight away did the other, but now he's got the hard work, he's got to use that extra power to find a way past Bianca Lilla. We've got, what they're now through turn 4, so, 18 corners left of this race to go, not long left, and a whole heap of action left to come.
And I tell you what that does on the points as well. I'm pretty sure that puts Bianca Lilla up into 2nd place for the race here today over the 2 races at London. Amazing stuff. Brendan Lee down the inside towards the hairpin, side by side. He spins, he loses his front wing. Capit and Miller come through, and that is heartbreak for Brendan Lee. He knew that was his last opportunity.
He knew he had to do it. Again, it's better to fail trying than to not try at all, but in through the final couple of corners now, David Mrocek, he's arrived here in London Cam, and he is going to take the victory.
David Mrocek across the line in his Tag Heuer Porsche livery will take victory at the London E-Prix for the Formally Accelerate 2023, and with it the prize money as well. He's going to be absolutely loving that one. Contact in the hairpin on the final lap as well between Lee and Reed, but across the line in 2nd place will be Simičić and Berlak to round out your podium. And into the final corner, Bianca Lilla will be taking that 4th place, and I think he's going to be 2nd on the night overall, so he's had a great result along with Risto Capit in 5th, Lucas Müller in 6th.
Consistency, consistency, consistency. That was everything. As we see a last lap battle here, Isaac Gillison versus Martin Mergley, who is going to get himself into the top 10, get a couple of points to his name. Isaac Gillison really falling off towards the end of that race, but huge stuff from both David Mrocek, both Manuel Biancalilla. Huge races for them, and a great result in terms of the championship.
Yeah, now it was definitely a sort of a race I didn't quite expect actually to see. It was a little bit more calm during that sort of mid pack of the race, but what we saw at the beginning there, what really actually set the tone for the race was Simoncic and Müller. Through that first sector, Simoncic was so decisive, so aggressive, making that move for second place.
He was, and that's exactly what you have to be. Is that a circuit like London, you can't 50-50. You can't go for it and think, do I go for it? Do I back out? Because that's when the crashes happen. That's when mistakes happen. That's when walls get clipped. If you're going to do what Simoncic did, you commit. You go, I'm braking late. I'm getting that place. You tell yourself you're going to do it, and you use your machine and you go and do it. Exactly what he did. A little bit argy-bargy, bit of bodywork exchange and things like that, but he got it done. He got it done as clean as he could, I think, for this situation. And what that did allow, obviously, to get Simoncic into second, put Lucas down a little bit, maybe tarnished his race a little bit, and put him on the back foot. Most importantly, David Mrocek, what was he, 4 or 5 seconds ahead in the first half of the race, and then was able to take that and say, cool, I'm going to double it.
Yeah, he kept the pace going throughout the race. He didn't get the gap and then stabilised. He kept on pulling it out. And by my maths, it looks like he won the race overall as well. And of course, we'll be trying to get some interviews with them to get their reaction, because that was actually a pretty tense race. And Simoncic in behind had that pressure on Berlak for pretty much the whole of that race. He managed to hold on to that and take, from my maths, the overall standings for the 3 races as well.
He did, yeah, fantastic stuff from Berlak, and it is very important to keep that pressure on. It was a good effort, not quite close enough in the end, maybe 4 or 5 laps more, he might have been able to do it, but he didn't. It was a 28 lap race, not a 32 lap race. You've got to make the most in the time limit that you've got. Still a great result for Peter Berlak. I'm sure he's going to be very thrilled.
Yeah, I'm just looking down at the rigs, at the drivers, and they are of course looking a little bit exhausted after the race, but everyone seems pretty happy with that one, and it looks like all the drivers will, they like having this LAN environment. It's a bit different to the online that we're used to so often. When you're online, you're at home, you're in your own room. When it's here, when you can go and speak to the drivers after the race, you go and shake their hands, it's so much of a different atmosphere.
Yeah, good thing we didn't see many incidents. Otherwise, we might have a boxing ring down there at the stage. But it's a good thing. I mean, again, from my LAN experience, it's always a good atmosphere, good vibe, people going to each other. Oh, how did you get on? What was your pace like? How did you do? And just generally a really positive atmosphere. And all the drivers, they've been talking to each other for pretty much the whole weekend since they've been here and things. And it's a nice atmosphere. And that's what we love about LAN, because yes, sim racing, it's virtual racing, and it's online, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it is real racing at the end of the day, real people now able to share this experience together.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, but of course we want to hear the voices of the drivers. We want to hear everything, so let's get to the opinions of the race winner, David Mrocek.
David, an absolutely brilliant race there, lights to flag victory. How did it feel from inside the cockpit?
It was easier than I expected, because, I can tell you that I was preparing for this race with Jerney, and he was right behind me in this race. During the preparation, he was actually faster than me, but I don't know what happened today. I was just, somehow I was faster than him, and it was a pretty easy victory, to be honest, so yeah, I'm really glad.
Well, I guess it all fits into place sometimes as a driver. You get in the flow of the circuit, everything is set up properly for you. Now, this circuit is incredibly tricky. It's a very delicate circuit, and it's very easy to make a mistake. How did you stay so focused and stop from making any errors out on track?
So I think the fact that I was leading, it obviously is a huge benefit on this track, because it's incredibly hard to follow here. So I knew that I had a kind of a advantage in that. So maybe sometimes I could just maybe a bit coast in some places, maybe just not drive at the absolute limit. And I don't know, somehow it worked. Yeah, somehow it worked. And in the end, I was even faster with doing that than, Jerney in P2. So yeah, I mean, what can I say?
Well, absolutely brilliant. Now, we saw some of the other drivers really struggle with the rear tyres around here. There's lots of, traction zones, there's lots of tight hairpins. How are you trying to control the wear with those rear tyres?
So, in the race, we are using 300 kilowatts, so it's a bit easier than in quali. It's not that difficult in terms of traction at the exits of the hairpins and stuff like that. So in the race,
I mean, it was quite comfortable, so I could just, as I said, I could just maybe underdrive the car just a bit, and I was able to just preserve the tires. It was, at the end of the day, it was, I think, quite easy. So, yeah, wasn't too difficult, I think.
Brilliant. Well, fantastic victory, David. Well done. Congratulations. Now we're going to head over to the casters for the final results.
Yes, of course, the results are the all-important thing around here. It's not just the winners out on the track, but it's of course all the races in behind. We saw some amazing battles, and let's see how they ended up, because of course we need to have a look at what is going on. David Mocek, of course, leading the way with that 50 points, and it was looks like, as it stands, of course, the stewards have a couple of things to look at. But as it stands, Manuel Biancalilla, second place, 42 points. I said that was an important move for him. We're actually going to be getting a couple of investigations, so we'll show you the official standing in just a moment in time. I can see down there the stewards going down. But let's actually have a look at the fastest lap, because of course there was a couple of laps. And Jani Simoncic, a 19.776, gets those extra couple of points. That is going to be crucial, of course, in the overall standings, and even today, because of course he struggled a bit in that first race. So things like that's kind of what we expected with Simoncic there.
100%. I mean, he got the fast lap in the charge race as well. His race trim was really, really strong, and that's, you know, anyone that's been familiar with Jani Simoncic across sim racing and the Virtual Endurance Championship, Formula Sim Racing, he's always able to deliver that pace lap in, lap out, and he's so good at also keeping it within the limits. I mean, a couple of FSR races this season already been very strategy focused. Like today, he's so good at just driving it to the margins, to the limits, but he won't be 5% under, he'll be 0.5% under, he'll be right there, lap in, lap out. So Simoncic, yeah, crucial couple of points, not the result that he would have wanted maybe overall, still great points and some great prize money as well.
And I believe he got both of the Tag Heuer fastest laps there, so that was in the charge race and also in the feature race as well, so that would be an extra 3 points that he got. And considering how close it's looking on the overall standings, those are going to be very, very crucial. And of course, the extra point was also the 6 points for David Mocek for the fastest lap as well. So it was certainly an eventful sort of race. We saw, obviously, seeing the stewards, they're still having a bit of discussion down there on what is going to be going on, so we'll give them obviously time, give them the time for that. But it was definitely, I would say overall, it was actually a bit cleaner than I was expecting.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we were sort of saying that it's either going to be 100% or 0% in terms of chaos and carnage. They're either going to be really sensible, or they're not going to be really sensible in the crudest form possible. I mean, they're sim racers at the end of the day. They've got that adrenaline. They want to win. They want to chuck up the inside, but they know how to keep it in within the rules, the margins of the regulations. Obviously, naturally, mistakes are going to happen, especially when things get heated, like when it gets desperate, like you were saying during the race between Gillison and Muller, fighting side by side at a circuit that doesn't really promote side by side action very well. Things happen, mistakes get made, the margins of error are so slim. It's not like a circuit like Paul Ricard where you can have a bit of a tussle, push each other off and get away with it. You push each other off here, you're pushing each other into a concrete wall.
And we actually saw with Gillison now, I wonder if that was that tyre wear. We'll have to get a word with him at some point actually to see what was going on there in that middle part of the race, how the race sort of went further back for him, because the top three with Mocek, Simoncic and Berlek, they just started to pull away, and he was really struggling, and unfortunately just spun up the tyres there at the end. So I definitely think there was a bit of issues going on for him.
100%. I mean, we saw probably from lap 10, 11 through. Obviously, they were sliding through the hairpins and things to get that rear end rotation, but we saw him sliding through turn 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that sort of area. That first sector, you want it to be pointing with the front end. You don't want the rear to be stepping out, and he was sideways, which is the last thing you want. And again, like I said, it sets you into that positive feedback loop in a negative way, that snowball effect. You know, you slide, the tyres go off, you slide, the tyres go off, and then it just snowballs and gets even worse and worse, to the point where in the end it was almost unrecoverable. He didn't have a front wing, he was fighting with Martin Marguli trying to hang on to a top 10. And that's not what Isaac's pace showed. He has been quick, he has arrived here today, he has been so quick, and his pace showed it. He was fourth in that race at some point, but the longevity, that is what we talk about in that main race. 28 laps, not 10.
Yeah, I guess just looking forward, we'd have to see a little bit of improvement in the tyre management potentially for him in that respect, because what we saw was obviously he was going so much slower that once he got out of the way, we then saw that battle with Lee and Biancalilla, and then of course Kappa at the end there. They really started to stretch out and the pace seemed to be a lot different there. So I think the race would have been a lot different if we saw Muller keep that second place at the beginning, and if we saw Gillison there hold on to his tyres a little bit better. There would definitely been just a little bit more maybe of a train, but because it's spread out, it actually made the life easy for the guys at the front. It made it really difficult for those guys in the midfield.
It did, again, because as soon as you build a gap, it's hard to close it. Again, at this level, as we say, it's hard to find that little bit extra to be better, you know, because they've already reached the ceiling. I mean, when you first start out on your sim racing journey, as I'm sure many people watching here today live and also at home, you know, you start off with your budget level sim rig, and you go out for the first time on track, you do a lap time, you think that was good, you learn in the track, you go out again, second half quicker, 2 seconds quicker, 3 seconds quicker on the next lap, and you build up and up and up until you get to your highest potential. That is the limit that we're at here today. It's hard to find that extra half a tenth. So you have to do it through the race, through consistency, through management. And as soon as David Mocek, Simincic and Berlak got that gap, it was game over for the podium.
And while the stewards just do their final decisions, let's take a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back with the podium ceremonies and the confirmed results.
Okay, so we have the results in. The podium positions have been finalised, and after some amazing racing here today in both of the races, we have the final results. In third position, we have Manuel Biancolilla. Manuel, he's so excited, he's away celebrating somewhere. Manuel, here he is, gang. Congratulations. Please take your lovely trophy here. Okay, Manuel, if you could just come over here for a quick interview. Now, very tricky course here at the London E-Prix. How was the race for you today?
The sprint, the charge race, the first one, was basically just keep the position until the end, and I managed to do that pretty well. Qualifying was a little bit too bad for my standards, but at the end of the day, with the main race, I managed to grab a little few positions due to the incidents during the race. So overall, that's fine. I was happy with it.
So we saw a lot of the drivers actually struggling with the rear tyres out there on the circuit. How did you manage the consistency with the tyre degradation?
I knew from the beginning that rear tyre temps had a huge impact on the lap time. So I tried to drift, but not too much on the two hairpins, because if you don't drift, you lose like half a second. But if you drift, you start losing lap time because of the tyre degradation. So I had to combine a little bit of both.
Fantastic. Well, Manuel, congratulations, fantastic result. Now we're going to move on to second position in today's championship. Coming in second is Risto Capit. Congratulations, Risto. Come up onto the podium, please. We're struggling to keep control of our esports drivers today. Risto. Here he is. There you go, Risto. Congratulations. Risto, if you could just come here for a quick interview, that'd be fantastic. So, very good. Second position. How does that feel?
Much better than I expected. I mean, this is amazing. I am a big fan of Formula E. Actually, I've been trying to get to this competition for a while, so this came quite as a big surprise. I mean, the points for the sprint race were much bigger than I anticipated, and winning that, I was just at the right place at the right moment, and then I hanged on in the main race, didn't put it in the wall, which is not easy to do. So, yeah, and that's the reward. So I have to be in it to win it sometimes. I got lucky. I was definitely not the second fastest driver, but very happy.
Well, I don't believe there's any luck in sim racing. The precision was there. You didn't make any mistakes. How did you manage to stay so focused during such a long event?
Well, I didn't throughout. I mean, in qualifying, I did crash. There's speakers right next to you. You can hear the commentator saying. You can see the real Formula E from the TV. You can see your own race from the TV. So you are not really 100% focused, but eventually, yeah, you remember all your marks from practice. And we were for sure slower than we would be at home, but you just do your best, and it worked out.
Fantastic, Risto. Congratulations. Excellent result. Excellent driving today. Now, on to the overall winner of the Formula E Accelerate Championship here today in London. Can we welcome to the stage David Mrocek. Congratulations, David. David, if you could just step here for a quick interview. Now, I know we've already spoken. We've spoken about your precision on track. We've spoken about your focus out there. But how does it feel to have that trophy in your hands and, of course, winning the prize money?
Well, feels fantastic. I definitely didn't expect it when I came here. Well, so far my best result in this, the championship was only P8, so I completely didn't expect it. So I think finally, the quali laps kind of clicked. And from that, well, after quali, it was just easy road to victory, I guess. So yeah, I'm just incredibly happy.
Brilliant, David, congratulations, fantastic driving this weekend. Now, we've taken 2 races to qualify for the race here in London. We've had some absolutely incredible qualifications and races over those events. We've got some beautiful trophies here for the winners, and I just want to take a moment to congratulate the Formula E Accelerate champions, and let's take a moment to give them a clap and celebrate their victories. Okay, if you'd just like to head over here, guys, thank you very much. Okay, I think we can all agree that that was an incredibly exciting event. Let's head up to the casters to get their final thoughts.
And what a championship that was over the course of the 3 races. Of course, we started in Berlin back in April, went to Rome a few weeks ago, and now we've had the final. We know the champions, of course, Marek winning just what do you think of that, Zach?
It's insane. I mean, again, it just goes to show the unpredictability of a format like this. I mean, yes, David is so quick, but he even said himself that he was surprised to be so on the pace, and it just shows that if you can arrive and you can be switched on at a LAN event, you can bring the results. He dominated that main race. Yes, he didn't get any points in the charge race, but it didn't matter at all because his sheer domination in that main race gave him the points that he needed, and well, now he walks away 4.5k richer.
It definitely just shows you how interesting Formula E racing can be, so enjoy the main races just coming up, and from myself, Cameron and Zach, will hand it back down for the final time to Scott.
Thank you guys, appreciate it. Now we come to the end of the day, and I think we can all agree we saw some fantastic on-track racing today. So thank you to Formula E, thank you to all the esports drivers for joining us today, and thank you for having me as your host today on this stream. Cheers, and we'll see you next time.